Recording is
Oh, it's
on.
recording, I promise. Thanks, Carter.
Yeah,
Appreciate
my
it.
bad. Whenever I clicked on that other link, it must have.
All right, at Trust Medicine People, we are building a movement rooted in ancient wisdom, financial empowerment, and regenerative innovation. Through our plant medicine retreat centers, we create sacred spaces for healing, transformation, and deep connection with nature's intelligence. Our financial services empower individuals and businesses by restoring financial sovereignty through credit repair, business funding, and private irrevocable hybrid trusts. Beyond healing and finance, we are committed to regenerating the earth by green tech companies to restore ecosystems, uplift underserved communities through regenerative agroforestry, and execute charitable missions that create lasting impact. By integrating cryptocurrency into our ecosystem, we ensure sustainability, funding for our vision, and decentralizing wealth and opportunity for those who need it the most. The mission is to weave together ancient traditions, modern technology, and financial empowerment to create a world where people thrive in harmony with the earth. We are the bridge between the past and the future, the spiritual and the practical, the medicine and the movements. We are Trust Medicine People. So welcome everyone on the call. We really appreciate your presence. Yossi, go ahead, my brother.
Hey guys, thanks for coming on the call. Tuesday night gathering. We really appreciate your presence. Without you, there would be no us. We're all connected in this crazy maze, and we really appreciate your presence here. That being said, as you guys know, we are not lawyers, we are not CPAs, we do not hold any special title. We are men and women just like you guys. And while we can drop as thorough of a disclaimer as possible and still not really meet the mark, where the claim is the thing that always meets the mark every time. We do claim all natural and unalienable rights granted to us by our Creator. And from that space, there is no topic that's outside of the realm of our discussion here. And please feel free to bring anything into the conversation that you want. If it's something that's a bit too personal, you can always open up a window or go to Trust Medicine People, book a free consult, and we can hash it out in private. That being said, thanks again, guys. Thank you everybody for being here. Thanks to our core team and the people who have been joining us every week here. We look forward to an enlightening conversation.
All right, everybody. So I like to start these meetings with a question for Yosi, and of course, this definitely leads to the floor being open to everybody here to ask questions, share opinions. We talk about a variety of different things, not just trusts and how to escape the matrix, but we also talk about health and medicine, healing, cleansing, using medicine, to further enhance your life as well. But TMP is about we're about a bunch of things. The true path to freedom is everything that we have on our plate that we offer, that we talk about, especially the trust. Okay, but the trust leads to other things, because you can't have that one thing without, healing yourself, eating healthy, taking medicine to overcome, obstacles in your life, traumas particularly. So we just kind of want to talk about our vision and purpose today. So some of these questions are going to relate to that, and then I'll lead into something else. And as you guys know, if you have any other questions based on what we're talking about, please feel free to ask them and add to it. So first of all, Yosi, for vision and purpose, what is the biggest vision you currently are working towards?
Well, I've kind of designed my life so that I realized early on, my wife and I realized we can't be in every place at once, and that there are a lot of people who resonate with this big dream that we're all sharing, essentially. And because of that, we designed a life where we live in service to further actualizing anybody's dream, as long as that dream is in service to something greater than yourself. And what we found is that we've gotten exponentially further in advancing our dream, which always resonates with all of our, anybody that we work with. We tend to resonate with their dream as well. So it's very advantageous for me to just keep working. That being said, the biggest thing is running a culture that's not necessarily a counterculture, but an alternative to the status quo big culture model, that big parasite that feeds on everything. And rather than coming at it with resistance, we're just running a totally different culture, very transparent, right alongside of it. And at some point we will hit that J curve and blast off. And we know that as this culture that's based on death and entropy and inversion of reality, as it collapses, just pretty much like every other empire has collapsed under its own weight, that there will be something there that will be significant, that will be authentic, and it will come directly from the people and directly from the earth stream for how we should be living in harmony with her and with the Great Spirit. So that's what I'm most excited about, is just further advancing y'all's dreams.
Excellent, Yosi, and thank you. If you could remove one obstacle from your path right now, what would it be?
I would keep every single obstacle. I would probably remove the thing inside of me that thought that removing the obstacle would get me further than the obstacle.
Boom. Hey, James, if you don't mind, brother, if when we go through the questions, have Yossi answer his, and then if we could just open the floor, and if anybody else wants to answer the same question. Yes, that was a great answer, Yossi. But if anyone else wants to answer that same question and share that, we would love to hear it. So, James, if you
put your
could
hands
just go
up
back
and
yeah,
then if you guys want to just put your hands up and just always make sure that mic is muted. This way there's less background noise and whatnot. And if Janai, if you can monitor when people throw their hands up so that we know when a queue is, we could build a queue here.
Gotcha.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. Well, so yeah, let's go back to the first question, about, if anyone wants to share their vision that they're currently working towards, their dreams, that's the biggest thing that we want to know. So if anyone wants to go ahead and tell us what their dreams might be, it could be anything. We just would love to hear it. All right, Frog, you would like to go ahead and speak? Go for it.
Thank you, James. Yeah, as you guys know, we're with Trust Medicine People. You guys know our main vision. What really excites me the most about this is the healing people. And then as we move beyond that, we plan on having those retreat centers, those healing resort centers, utilizing all these different and techniques to send people home smiling and feeling better in all aspects, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And one of the biggest things, Yossi and I were kind of talking about this the other day, is the ability to heal people on an individual basis. But we were talking about the importance of bees. And I've had some very, I don't want to say like epiphany or epiphanetic, if that's, you guys don't know what I'm saying, but I've had some visions about bees and the importance of them. Working with some particular plant medicines, I would obtain like bee vision and see a much wider spectrum of color in a honeycomb kind of overlay. And then realizing that, wow, the bees they vibrate so high. They have such a high frequency. And then leading into, kind of realizing, and, I was in some taught in school or emphasized in school, but guys, without bees we don't eat. And some people, there's still animals to eat. Well, then without bees, animals don't eat because nothing grows, because nothing's pollinated. So bees literally sustain this entire Gaia, this entire system wouldn't be there without bees. So one of the main things, and again, along with all of the things that we're creating and helping people with their finances and edifying them in all aspects of life, I think the biggest thing with like the end game per se, the really one thing I'm looking forward to is increasing the amount of bees by many and really turning this place that we live back into a much greener and sustained ecosystem. So yeah, that's mine. That's mine. We do a lot of things, but really it's the end game. We can save people on an individual basis. And then we were having a conversation and we're like, bro, we gotta change the world. And we're able to do that with bees. They're our best friends. And, we're definitely looking forward to bringing down groups of people. We're definitely looking forward to getting people business funding and repairing their credit and doing all these things to really give people an edge up. You have bee frogs, really giving people an edge up on life. But really like the biggest thing we could possibly fathom is, bee sanctuaries. So yeah, with that being said, anyone else have something
Robin.
that they're working on? Thank you.
Robin is next.
Hey there. So what Yossi was talking about, that's pretty big. And we want to concentrate in New Orleans first, in the surrounding area, and change the way that people view addiction. And rather than shaming them and are giving pharmaceutical relief, I want to change the way they see it and teach them other ways to cope and teach them skills, because you don't really get that. And what they're doing now isn't working. So along with a few other things, to sort of with a new culture goes with new attitudes about things, new perspectives about things that we've always looked down on or something like that, less less judging and shaming and more connecting. That's it. Thanks for listening.
Beautiful, Robin. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robin and Tony. Yeah, coming up with the dream, things that you want to do. Everyone has them. Everyone has them. The biggest thing, I think that, part of the second question that I was asking is, if you could remove one obstacle. So what are some things that are holding people back? What are some things that, if you have fear or you're, you might not have funding or, you don't know the right steps to create a business plan for your dream. What are some of the things that are going to stop you from wanting to do what you want to do? Because that's another way.
I think you also answered it right there in the, what is it? Fear? Is it, it's always going to be something that happens internally, right? This is why Kabbalah is so powerful, is because the mystics knew you don't pray for something else outside of yourself. If anything, you pray for courage, you pray for strength, you pray for stamina, you pray for those things where that internal feedback loop can feed upon itself through your prayer. So I think all of these obstacles are all things that can be removed. It usually comes down to money. And then the thing is if you're not like forged, like steel in your experience before you get that money, like if you're somebody who just say wins the lottery, you don't have the tools, the techniques to be able to preserve it, hold it, flip it, right? It's going to go nowhere. It probably will kill you. And that's the experience that we see over and over and over again. So I think all of these obstacles are good things. They're just preparing us for that path. But yeah, that's access to currency looks like the main one, brother.
Welcome, Jiggy.
So, Yossi, I heard someone say to me, I was talking to a dude, he runs a Windows installation business. So he installs Windows. And he said his wife did a lot of the paperwork and reporting for that. And I asked him, I go, so when's the last time you filed taxes or, reported anything? And he said about like 10 years ago. And his philosophy was, well, if I have people pay cash, I'll cut them a deal. I'll keep it off the books. And my first thought was like, well, you want to report revenue because if you can show that you report revenue, then you can get loans, and the more revenue you produce, you can get bigger and bigger loans. Do you want to elaborate on that and how that works?
Yeah, you want to get yourself in a situation where you've got as much debt and as much equity as possible. Both of those things are not taxable, right? So if you want to create a revenue stream through a business like an LLC, you need to get yourself a trust so that you can get an operating agreement, extend the LLC an operating budget, have the LLC spend the whole year paying back the operating budget, but still end up in the red at the end of the year. This puts both entities and all entities that you have on a trajectory toward growth, constant growth. That's the thing that you want. You want to be able to show, yeah, I'm making, $30,000 a month through the bank account that's associated with this business. But what they don't see is that you have to be paying that 30,000 plus interest back through the trust that extended the operating budget. That's the situation that you ideally want to be able to get into, so that you could show both the revenue stream, and so that the revenue stream, when it comes to the IRS's reporting, is accounted for as debt.
I just wanted to say that Jiggy has in the comments, it's the IRS obligation to file an individual's taxes. Filing taxes violates the Fifth Amendment protection against self-incrimination. Would you elaborate on that, or would anyone?
Go ahead, Jiggy.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Get jiggy with it.
Yeah, so filing a tax return, any documents that you submit can be used as evidence against you. And that's just pretty clear that it violates the Fifth Amendment. So it's actually the obligation of the IRS to notify you of what a individual or a legal entity's tax obligation is.
Correct. They do an assessment, and that's why it's called a self-reporting, right? Or essentially a self-assessment system, because it's on you to be able to justify whatever the behavior is that they're saying created taxable events. If you can do that, then you're good. Most of this has to do with planning. If you plan properly, you'll never have to pay a tax in your life. If you don't, and you get yourself into a situation where you have one of their entities that you've created, like an LLC, that comes with reporting requirements, right? And then say you create a bunch of things because you're in a situation where you're doing a lot of subcontracting. The IRS will be notified about that stuff. And then you will have to figure out what to do to be able to mitigate that tax burden. So the best way to do it, especially if you're operating through a business like that, is to do it correctly. It might not catch up on to you for, 10, 20, 30 years even. But if it does, a very small amount from 30 years ago could compound into something that can ruin somebody's financial future if they don't handle it correctly. So I'm a big proponent of, yes, while it would be a violation of the Fifth Amendment to be able to be required to report something that could potentially put you into a legal compromising situation. At the same time, if you're playing with their entities that they created, they have certain rules and regulations and obligations that came before the creation of that entity, so that if you are using those entities, you are agreeing to pay tax.
Yes,
And it goes the same thing with that public side entity. Same, pretty much same exact thing is required. These are all contracts that were created,
It's still paying taxes and filing taxes are two different things.
Right.
So
that's right. Yep.
The social security number is a sole proprietorship. So it's a taxable entity. Actually, anytime you do a transaction with Federal Reserve notes, that's a taxable occurrence. Because
Correct.
You're using the property of the Federal Reserve. And so
even if you're doing it through a trust, it's the same thing.
But instead of filing, you can ask them, what is the obligation? You don't have to file. You don't have to legitimize anything, because to do so is violating your Fifth Amendment protections. And so if you disagree with what they say the obligation is, then obviously you can contest it. But it's counterintuitive to file a return. You just communicate with them and tell them to do their job.
Even
the
when
IRS
we
will
were,
do this.
Yep, and even as a subcontractor, rather than filing, we would just request the reporting, and then we would settle with them.
Right, because
that is the preferred method to go about it, or set yourself up right first so that you don't have any kind of reporting requirements.
Right. I mean, and if you have an LLC, if the major shareholder, the major interest holder is a private trust, after you do your taxes and calculate all of your fringe benefits and all of your taxable, all your write-offs for the business, you can disperse the remaining revenue to the major shareholder tax-free one time a year.
That's essentially what we do with those operating agreements, brother.
Right.
The same exact thing. You're essentially doing one disbursement at the end of the year.
Right. And so you remove your tax obligation through that. It's
Correct.
Tax avoidance is totally legal. The abuse of tax avoidance is tax evasion. That's their big power play. Like, they couldn't get, that's how they get the mobsters, through tax evasion. That's their power move.
Thank you so much, you guys. Robin had a question in the chat. Do you keep the trust lending money to the LLC so there's never a profit?
Yep. Yeah, at the beginning of the fiscal year, that's when it extends the budget to the LLC or a series of LLCs, and it just has to be on paper. It doesn't have to be actual, digits in a bank account or anything like that. Just on paper. LLC's projected to make $200,000 this year, extending it an operating budget of $220,000 and tacking on 10 to 18% interest. And then the LLC on a regular payment schedule, quarterly or monthly, or even more regularly than that. It could be after every single time money goes into the LLC's bank account, it gets pushed right over to that trust bank account. And then it's satisfying its debt to the trust for extending it that budget. And then at the end of the year, right before it would become a potential issue, you just balance the books again by extending another tranche of funding back to the LLC. LLC should have some kind of debt to report, and if it structures itself correctly, could even get some kind of a refund on that personal side.
Right. Okay. I don't know what would happen if you said I mean, how would you handle it? Because it's a violation of your Fifth Amendment where you shouldn't, incriminate yourself. But at the same time, is that causing kind of Yossi and I started out with learning a lot of the stuff, and a lot of it is confrontative. And so a lot of it causes, it's not in a spirit of cooperation. It's in the spirit of, I hope I don't go to jail. And so many people started to go to jail from a lot of these gurus telling them some crazy stuff, or not telling them the whole story, or telling them to file some paperwork. But before that, you need to file some other paperwork that they don't mention, And so I think basically we just try to keep it but at this point, where there's no confrontation because we're not having to talk to anybody for the most part. And it can all be in writing and papers, but it's not back and forth fighting. I guess there's a lot of ways that you can go about doing the kind of things that we're talking about right now. And we just like to go about them the least confrontative because, that makes it the easiest. That's all.
Right. And ideally you position yourself correctly so that you never run into any kind of an issue, you never create a taxable event, and then you don't have to talk to anybody. But that's not the situation for a lot of people who find themselves already with levies on their bank accounts and judgments against them, and the IRS has already sent them out plenty of notice, defaulted on them, made it so that they actually created a security interest on that alleged debt. And because it wasn't challenged in the correct way, like you said, it's people think to challenge something is essentially confrontative, and it could just be something as simple as a record correction process, right? You have me down as this entity who, according to you, should that be the correct way that entity was filed or should have filed? Yes, it would have some kind of tax reporting obligation. But like Jiggy said, because of the Fifth Amendment, and there are many, the Privacy Act you can lean on as many things as you want. The thing with the IRS is they are the world's premier accounting agency. They will foreclose on you, and they'll do it quick. They'll default on you with a series of letters before you even know something showed up in your mailbox if you're out of town. So it could get dangerous really quick, and a tax court is not where anybody wants to end up. That's definitely the wrong approach. If you do need to, for some reason, cite that Fifth Amendment, make sure it's done with a conditional acceptance letter, where essentially you're saying, I accept the debt as you've said it is right now. These are the conditions. Please verify that it exists. I need to see the paper trail, and so on. Full audit trail. They'll be able to give it to you. If anybody can give it to you, the IRS can give it to you. And then if the IRS can tell you exactly what that debt is, they have special forms that you can use to be able to discharge that debt with credits on the back end. So it is a process. Yeah. It is a process. It is painstaking.
Whether your correspondence dictates whether or not it's confrontational or not, like you said, a conditional acceptance, or the way that you word your correspondence. If you're not combative and you remain in honor, and you're like, look, it's my understanding that this is the case here. If you could, this is what I believe to be true in my good faith. I'm asking, if I'm wrong in these assertions, please correct me and show me how and show me where.
Yep, that's it right there. The vital, that part, right? If I'm wrong, please correct me. If something that I'm says doesn't comport with your laws, statutes, or policies, please disregard this. Put it in a shredder if you need to.
Right. But I'm not going to, for me, I don't bow to anybody. So I'm not going to bow to the IRS. The IRS is an agency, which is a department of the IMF, which is the accounting for the UN. The IRS is not even a United States organization. The United States holds stock in the IRS, and the IRS is a subcontractor that works for the United States. It is it's a collection agency. And it will work for you if you're in good standing and if you're in good communication, good faith, and you can put the IRS to work for you, and they will collect your own private debts. If you notify them properly and put them on notice, they will go after people for you. They're a collection agency. But bowing to the almighty IRS as if they're the gospel, you'll never catch me doing that.
Go ahead, brother.
Hey, so I know there's somebody on the line that is interested in hearing a little bit more about what was previously discussed and posted on YouTube. And Robin, I know that you're pretty well versed in this department. and then you'll see if there's any gaps to fill in. But if we could just cover real quick before I forget with children and with CPS, protecting them from, you know, any kind of mandated clot shots, protecting them from, you know, certain educational aspects. If Robin, if you could kind of run over that and maybe you'll see if there's any gaps to fill in.
Sure, I'll try, but from what I understand, the best way to go about that is to have the children in a trust. So you have to get a family trust so that the kids can't be bonded, the kids can't be taken, and you and your husband, ideally, this is the perfect way, that you have an agreement between you that you're going to deal with ADR, alternative resolution dispute, rather than the court system. I think Yossi needs to answer this, but thanks, Tony.
Yeah, I
Thank
mean,
you,
that,
Robin.
but that is, yep, that is it in a nutshell. You need those ADR provisions in a trust. You need to make sure that if you're a mother, you've commandeered the biological material. If you're a father, you've laid down strict terms and conditions as far as what you're bringing to the table and your stake essentially in those children. As the
But what if they
you know, the
didn't?
breadwinner or whatever.
What if they didn't and it's too, like, it's because most people don't have that situation. So what to do if the CPS comes out of after your kids right now and you have a traditional
well,
setup like everybody?
Correct. Yep. But
What
you know, like we say with everything, IRS, CPS, anytime you're dealing with a 3-letter agency, your only mistake, if anything, was being aware of information and not doing what you had to do to get yourself set up correctly so that you can handle them in the proper capacity through the proper agency. Meaning if you have a bunch of children and just a regular marriage contract, let's say, or don't even have that in place, those children are the state's children. The state considers them their children before your children. That contract that you made with the birth certificate is something that needs to be remedied. Now, the remedy isn't to not get them a birth certificate or not get them into a situation where at some point through their own free will and volition, they can choose something and to operate in whatever capacity they want. You don't want your kids growing up hating you because you didn't get them a birth certificate. At the same time, you definitely don't want to revoke anything or go ahead and try to make it so that your signatures were essentially null and void. That's only going to throw up flags. So in the ideal situation, both parents come together. They make sure that both come together on equal footing. And then from that space, you have children, obviously, and then you protect those children from the time that they're born in the private capacity. Now, if you just get stuck out there and you're already having trouble with CPS, there are many different remedies, but none of them are turnkey. And all of them involve tiers, all of them involve time and effort, and they're all customized because no one situation, I mean, we don't even know when couples fight. The only people that know what's going on in that are the two people who are fighting. So God forbid children are involved. Children don't know anything until they reach a certain age, right? And so when CPS comes in, and they try to manipulate children to, through language, isolating them from their parents, you've got a rat's nest that you have to contend with. And like I said, it's not going to look the same every time, not going to be something that's turnkey.
Carter had a question. I just wanted to also address some comments in the chat by BI. Had mentioned, and I'm not sure if you want to speak afterwards, if you have a question, feel free to raise your hand. Just mentioned that has a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old and already in over, I see, doesn't have a mic. Okay, great. Well, maybe we can answer those by the chat after Carter. But Carter had your hand up.
Yeah, real quick, I just wanted to see if you could expand on that from a father's perspective.
Absolutely. Well, from a father's perspective, again, there's these two ways of approaching it, right? One is to set yourself up correctly with a private contract and a trust, a private contract through a trust, ideally 2 trusts, one for the mama, one for the father. And both of them, through that private contracting, come to terms and conditions and settle on alternative dispute resolution and a series of, if this doesn't work, then we do this. If that doesn't work, then we do this. And a protocol to keep the children out of the court's custody. And as soon as you can do that, and as soon as you can make sure that the court knows and you have clearly laid out ADR provisions, that's when you end up in a library just talking about it and hashing it out, even if lawyers are involved. No bond will be required. So they're not actually making money off of holding people in custody or trafficking children, right? But again, from the father's perspective, that's ideally you have that kind of private contract in place. If you don't, you're going to have to come up with some kind of in rem interest statement. And I would never advise a father how just carte blanche to go after his children and take them away from the baby mama under any circumstances, unless there's a serious issue with substance abuse or the mother is putting the children in danger through reckless behavior. And then in that case, they're even albeit temporary, while she gets some kind of treatment. Children always belong with the mother, and then if you have to settle that some way, because let's say the mother is a despicable, the worst of the worst, and you have to figure some way out to protect those children, then the father should come in and provide something and make sure. But I'm sorry, Carter, I do lean heavy with the siding with the mom by default, and knowing that both parties should have come to the table with a 50-50 agreement, and that we definitely need to redefine the terms of marriage, relationship, what it means to be in a committed relationship and raise children together, and so on. The best way that we can do that is through private contracting, because that'll keep it out of a court to begin with.
Right. Well, what if, my situation, I guess, it's not necessarily that we can't do that. It's, every single time I try to do that, even when we have good conversations, I still get arrested 15 minutes later.
Well, you want your good conversations. You use the same type of recording technology that you're using to record this call. Have a transcript printed out. Go right to her. It might take 10 minutes after that conversation. Hey, listen, just to make sure everything is on the up and up, here's it in its simplest form. Let's sign this, both of us, so that we're in agreement. And then take that, go get it notarized. Have her do the same.
Well, again, it's not even necessarily her. It's more so, you know my situation a little bit, but like it was seriously, like we had a good conversation, and she even, because they put on a no contact order for something that happened like 2 years ago. She even submitted a request to the court to lift it. And I saw in the court minutes, it just says that response was sent to attorneys, and that was even before my recent situation. And 15 minutes later, I still go to jail.
Well, I'm assuming, Carter, that has more to do with the internal politics in Walworth County than anything, and that you've been on their radar for a little while. They hear anytime anything comes over that. It's, if you're doing anything where it's being reported to any kind of agency, plus you have a bracelet, don't you?
Not at the moment, but soon.
Right. Yeah. So, you have to assume you're being monitored. Like I said, brother, every situation is different. How we would approach it, we'd have to first, I always like counseling first, right? It's the first thing. And third party counseling, somebody who's not necessarily a counselor. Like if you guys wanted to call me and, we can do a session and we can see if we can drill into what's nagging at both of you the most, bring it to the surface, come to some kind of meeting of the minds around it. And I think that kind of approach gets you much further than just doing it one-on-one or doing it through a court or asking an official third party to intervene.
No, I don't have any issues like that, brother. It's the county kind of taking matters into their own hands. It really doesn't have anything to do with my relationship with her. It's just it's strictly government.
Yep, you got to balance those books. Once you balance the books with them, you're going to be in a much better situation than you are right now. They treat every criminal case like they would a house that needed to be foreclosed on, because they were holding the sticks as the essentially as the security on that land, right? So they just accelerate the interest. So if they have any charges pending against you, expect them to try their best to accelerate that interest. make it so that you can't dig yourself out of that hole.
Hi, bye. If you're listening, I just wanted to interject and say, feel free to, you don't have access to your mic, but feel free to ask questions anyway, and I can read in the comments and ask anything you need, okay? And don't answer. Bye just mentioned in the chat. I don't know if you guys, Yossi, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yep,
Oh,
I
Robin,
can hear you.
anyone can hear me? Yeah, just Vi was mentioning that she doesn't have a mic, but that she had commented that she had a 4-year-old and 2-year-old and was way in over her head because the challenge is going to be getting her dad, her father, the kid's father on board with her plan. She said, we already have the BC and the vax injuries. At this point, she just wants to protect her littles from any further harm or danger.
What point is
And
she trying to get across to him, though?
what's that?
Like to the father of her kids, like why are they against each other? What's she trying to come to like a meeting of the minds with him about?
Right. That is where you want to
That is
figure
the
out is,
question.
how do we get this guy on board, and what is it exactly is it that we're looking to get out of this? So what's the primary goal? What's in it for him, and
Should
what's
say
in it
she's
from you?
taking notes. Sorry to interrupt. She's taking notes and trying to figure out how to approach the husband with information to begin with. So she's
What
just learning.
What's in it for him?
I see.
Start off by giving him everything that he wants if possible. And then from that point, dial it back a little bit. I'm not saying propose to him that you're going to give him everything he wants. Just come up with a plan where he would get everything that he wanted, that he ever asked for. And get that real clear so you have his needs and his wants on your mind.
Can
and
I
then
just ask?
you come.
Sorry,
Go
can
ahead.
I just ask
Yeah.
what information are you trying to approach him with?
Okay.
Here, let's
All right. So
let's try
he
this
needs,
real
he
quick.
needs it.
Yeah,
Yeah. He needs
so-
information.
Here,
Yeah, he needs information. It seems like
here before you go
about
on,
a
brother.
specific. Go
Here,
ahead.
Yossi, hold on real quick. Hey, bye. If you can see the screen, try this. Try going up here.
No, she doesn't have a mic.
She doesn't
She
have
doesn't have a
access.
physical mic.
She doesn't have a mic. So
She
I
doesn't
can
have
say
mic.
as a woman who was married for 10, almost 12 years to my ex-husband, and we were what I thought was very on the same page about my kids and the vaccines. At this point, I would recommend you be very careful and watch yourself about what you say to him when it comes to the state, the police, the government, the education system, all of it. Focus mainly
No
on
kidding.
the injuries that your kids have already had from the vaccines and try to keep him from poisoning your kids, because my ex-husband used the fact that I'm against the government, against the education system, against the medical system,
Correct.
against me to take my children from me in a court of fucking law. And he vaccinated my kids again, and all of them have vaccine damage now.
Right. That's why you want to find out what is the thing that he wants, right? And then the proposal that you have is, listen, I will give you everything that you want, but I am in control of the children's medical from now on. All of any kind of medical decision flows through me and me alone. I am a dictator on this.
I
It
don't
came
think he's
from
going to
me.
agree
It's
to
my
that.
job. Okay, well, look, let's find out what he agrees to. That's the whole point. His whole thing that might be pressing him more than that, if you're separated, is money. You don't know until you find out what is his main thing. I highly doubt that a father's main thing is protecting the medical decisions of his children from the mother. And I really highly doubt that if he's a state cop, that he's educated enough or cares enough about that to be able to make that his line in the sand. So essentially what I'm saying is you find his line in the sand. You find out what it is he wants. And if possible, work up a situation where you can give him all of it. And then you give him all of it, and then you take the thing that matters most to you, which is the children's medical decisions. And then from that point on, you make those decisions. You get those kids in a trust ASAP. Legal resistance. What does that mean?
I'd like,
I think she's talking about the resistance from the people in the hospital when they decided not to vaccinate their kids anymore.
right.
So where are you at? What state do you live in?
I'd also like to see what Jigi's saying about
I'm not in
the,
Wisconsin. I'm in Michigan. So Wisconsin, I'm pretty sure Wisconsin is one of the states that still has exemptions that they allow. So they allow religious, philosophical, and medical exemptions. When your children were injured by the vaccines, did you take them back to the doctor and like make reports of the vaccine injuries? Okay. Did you make a report to VAERS? It's the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. Yep. VAERS. Yeah, I would. You can look it up online. VAERS. Here, I'll type it in too. Yep, there you go. All right, good. Look into that because that's the reporting system for adverse events to reactions that you've had. Now you need to go back to the doctor and you need to get every single vaccine that is given has to have a number on the box so that they know exactly which vaccine from which batch you got. You want that information from the doctor, and the nurses have to write it down in the record when they give it to your kid on the little shot card. So you need to get that number because that's what you're going to need for the VAERS report. Yeah, I mean, as far as the doctors, do you go to like a family practitioner or are you talking about the hospital specifically? Oh, the vaccine damage is definitely out there. And I've been so happy recently to see so many more people are waking up to it.
But I think what Jennifer's saying, though, is also the religious exemption there.
Yep.
You're going to want to definitely apply for that religious exemption. And like I was saying, if you did it through a trust, that would be the ideal way to do it. Get that exemption so that this doesn't keep happening. As far as enforcing it, you can definitely complain to VAERS, but you have to realize that enforcement is the other half of it. It's going to require a lot of letters. I would definitely notify the Attorney General if you were doing that. Let them know so that they have a place to point it to.
I'm going to drop a link in the comment section. I hope you can copy and paste that.
When was the last time you heard of an Amish taking their child to a doctor, getting them vaccinated, and then having a lawsuit for a vaccine-related injury? It's not going to happen. They lean heavy on those religious exemptions. There'd be no hospital in the world that would attempt to vaccinate an Amish child against the parent's will. So that's how you have to set yourself up.
I've actually got to say recently, I was really disappointed to hear there was a hospital who was denying a girl a liver transplant because she refused to get the COVID vaccine. And her parents were like, we have a religious exemption, she shouldn't need to get it. But the hospital still refused to even put her on the list to get a transplant.
Right, because they've made that as part of their standard of care now. So, ideally you don't fuck around with hospitals.
Yeah, no, I'm like, if I'm not dying, don't take me to a hospital.
Right. And even if I am, if you can figure out something different, drive me home, please. Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy because the last couple of days I've really been on the vaccine stuff on Facebook, because they're coming out with these new measles outbreak here, and this is going on, and you got to get the bird flu shots coming out, and it's just so fucking ridiculous. Once you actually know the truth about the vaccines and their invention and how the history of it rolled out, and if you read the vaccine inserts and you look at the freaking ingredient list and you look at the way that those ingredients affect the human body when you inject it into it, it's just insane how people cannot see it. Yeah,
well, part of why they can't see it is because they're vaccinated, right? So part of what prevents us from seeing it is this is insidious, the thing that we're dealing with. It vaccinates you, prevents it. It vaccinates you, fluorides you. That douses you with aluminum from the atmosphere, makes it so that you can't see the thing that's happening until it's too late. It might be too late. But at the same time, if we could just preserve ourselves and preserve our children and prevent shit like this from happening over and over and over again, really lean on those religious exemptions. Don't be the type that goes fool me once and then you get fooled 10 more times until your children aren't there anymore.
Yeah, I'm so glad that I eventually woke up to what the vaccines were doing to my kids. And I'm very grateful that I was able to have my third at home in a pool, and she didn't have any vaccines up until she was 3. Because I swear that first 3 years and breastfeeding her the entire time is probably what saved her from the 30 vaccines she got in 3 months when her dad got her.
No doubt. Yeah.
Yeah, just like to say that Jiggy in the comments was mentioning that they all contain simian virus 40. And if you're listening, also someone to check out for the origins of this stuff is Dr. Jack Cruz. He did a talk in 2010. He has a lot of information out there. But if you can get your ex to at all indulge in any of that might potentially maybe. Again, people
I
are,
would highly recommend serrapeptase, nattokinase.
yes.
Those two enzymes right there combined with a really good cleanse.
I'll
Like
write them in
your
the
children,
chat for
your
you.
children can do the master
Can
cleanse.
I chime
Get
in
your
with what I
kids,
did to get my son off the autistic spectrum?
please do.
There is an amazing line called BioRay Kids. They have a happy, a calm. There's so many ones that they have that are good for different things. But I use the BioRay Kids Happy because it gets the heavy metals out of the brain. So I gave that to him religiously for 6 months, along with doing detox baths with Epsom salt. You have to make sure that you get that hot enough that they actually break a sweat. And then also you're going to want to add some sodium ascorbate to the water to neutralize the chlorine in the water. And healthy diet, quality water, and it brought him back in 6 months.
That's what's up. And those baths, another good tool with those is hot, like Jennifer's saying. But then they want to stay in the bath until they're cold, until the water is either room temperature or cold, and that'll pull all those toxins out. And then clay, if you could throw in some bentonite clay or something like that, that always
Activated
helps.
charcoal is a good one. Fulvic acid is good for,
but it clumps. It tends to clump in the water.
Which one does?
The activated charcoal.
Oh, no. I wasn't talking about in the water with the bath. I was talking about, I just put it in water and I mix it up in the water and I drink it. I do that with diatomaceous earth.
Yep. That's what we do too. Yep. Diatomaceous earth. Iodine is the heaviest elemental. That's the one that is going to bust through all of that, and help you with that heavy metal detox probably more than anything.
I'm sure you're probably listening and reading the comments, but feel free to find me on Facebook.
Absolutely. Yes, guys. Good deal.
Course, of course. That is
good deal.
I may not have been able to save my own kids from the vaccines, but it is amazing when I can help other people save their children.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Jennifer.
I'd just like to say that's what it's all about. And also, if you want to friend me on Facebook, I'm familiar with some of the BioRay products and also recommendations for nattokinase, serratiopeptase. If you have any questions, Jen or I could help you with that.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Ms.
Jen. Thanks.
Yeah, it's like the only thing I really feel I have to live for is this right here. Helping other people to be able to get, their kids safe from this stuff. I mean, I don't even know what I can do for my own kids anymore, to be honest. The system.
That's precisely what you could do for your own kids.
Man.
I know that's hard, but
so the court system automatically sides with the doctors because they're all a bunch of bootlickers and rub each other's dicks.
Right. You have to consider that the courts and the banks are the same institution, just different buildings, different protocols for how they create money out of nothing. And one chattelizes, actual living, breathing, and the other just takes the securities on that chattelization and creates money out of thin air from it. So you've got those two entities. The hospital is that third that third spoke right there. They are definitely, if not the same as the banks and the courts, worse.
Yeah, the third wheel, or what you're talking about, is the hospitals are basically, they're strip malls for the pharmaceutical companies. And then if you follow the trail of where pharmaceuticals companies come from, the oil, when you refine oil, you have waste. Instead of calling it waste, they call it byproducts. And so then they use that byproduct and they call that chemicals, and they use those chemicals. So the oil companies created the chemical companies, which created the agriculture companies and the pharmaceutical companies. So this all goes back to the oil tycoons. This is all snake oil salesmen. And it's all a concerted effort to dumb down the masses and to impede the masses to be able to be healthy and rationally thinking, well-informed individuals, people. So you've got, if you follow that trail, you can see clearly what's going on. And it is a very elegant, multiple-pronged attack. The Rockefellers are the oil tycoons. The Rothschilds are the banking tycoons.
I have absolutely thought that about my bloodline too, that they are just drones of the system, and I was intentionally put in this life living around these people to come up against my soul and try to destroy me. Like, I'm not even lying.
So that's interesting too, right? Because we think the blood's thicker than water, but really that saying is the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. And so what's happened is we're in a place in time, and the reason why so many of us that are having the awakening or becoming aware and conscious in our inner authority, the reason why there's so few of us, and we're typically the black sheep in our families, and it causes so much disarray in the family, is because the family has been, our bloodlines have been mixed. And so while we may have sisters and cousins and brothers and uncles and aunts that are in our bloodline, we may have a negative RH factor and they have a positive RH factor, which indicates different ways, different types of we have a different entity, type of consciousness. And so we're actually, our families, like the people who we think are in our family, it's actually different genetics, but so we don't hold all the same genetics. And so, and that's what you do when you conquer a people. You kill all the men, you kill the children, you rape and pillage, and you impregnate the women with your seed and these bastard children, and you're weakening the bloodline, and you leave behind a church and the school. And it used to be the church and the school was the same thing. And so what I think is happening is the genetics of like I said, the chosen ones, whatever you want to call them, call it the people who are waking up, we have a different genetic structure. We have a different capability to even comprehend and see than those who are in our same families.
That makes sense.
And yeah, so it's like a built-in defense mechanism to keep us from resisting the assimilation.
So I would just like to bring up something randomly. You had said something about killing off the men, and it just made me think of a post I saw earlier and something I looked into. Because I guess there's a new claim out there that they're saying the Y chromosome is going to disappear, that they are like phasing it out. And it makes me think, because a lot of the stuff that we see now, and I know some people might find offensive, to this, but I am not with the gender bending.
Right.
And I have, noticed that it's gotten so much worse in like the last 20 years, 15, not even 20, 10 years, maybe 10 years. But the CDC schedule has gotten so fucking crazy, and every single one of those vaccines is cultured in aborted baby fetal cells, whether it's the male baby or the female baby. Mm-hmm. And this is getting injected into children who are developing, and it's changing them. I really honestly believe this, and I think that, just you saying that they kill off the men, and the way that I saw that today with the Y chromosome disappearing and them doing away with the male population, it's really scary to think of how diabolical and deep this really is.
Yeah, very diabolical, top down diabolical. They put atrazine in they're intentionally putting atrazine in the water. Come on now. So how more diabolical can you get?
That's the most, I think that the atrazine is the key. I think that's the biggest factor, one of the biggest factors in the shift that we've seen in the last 20 years of the percentage of gender bending, if you will. And, we're being chemically castrated. And if you don't know about atrazine, go through that little wormhole and you'll see how effective it is changing the sex of frogs and other animals. And so, yeah, instead of going through and being barbarians and Viking-like and destroying us with war, we're under attack through chemicals. And the vaccines do have a play in it, but I really think that the drinking water is one of their most effective weapons.
Robin, you had a question?
Yeah, well, yes, thank you, Janai. Yeah, a comment. The drinking water definitely is a problem. And now I think so yeah, the men, I think this is kind of the problem and why they're called toxic or whatever. I think what happened to men is they got castrated by society. So they can't do what men are built to do. Men are action. We're so very, very different, men and women, in a fundamental way. And our brains are different. I mean, there's so many differences that now they're ignoring. But when a man's told he can't protect his family, or he could end up in a cage, or someone breaks in the house and he protects the house and he goes to jail for assault because of the robber, there's just so many crazy rules that just take a man in his most powerful place and just squeeze it and beat it down. And I think it's, that's going to come out somewhere. You can't do that to people. And then for women, our nurturing nature was turned and described as weak. So then we're like, wait, don't, we're not weak. Don't make us slaves. But what's the most important place for you to be for your kids? And this might make women mad, but it's the kitchen, because you're asking what happened at school. You're making sure of what they're eating, what are they ingesting, what's happening. I don't know. I don't blame the people. I blame the culture.
Well,
But that's it.
I believe it is about the destruction of the divine feminine, the divine masculine. I know a lot of you probably are aware of 9/11 and that the towers represented the divine masculine and the divine feminine, and that the building 7 was the divine child. So that is the Holy Trinity in my opinion, from what I've looked into. And I think that it is very disgusting what they've done to men and women both.
Yeah. The 7/11.
Yeah.
And what I was going to say, or to further that is men are under attack for sure. The nuclear family is under attack. The nuclear family has been under attack for, this is all you have to do is read UN Agenda 21, UN Agenda 2030, read the protocols of the Elders of Zion. Like, this is a Zionist eugenicist agenda. And as far as the trans and the pronouns and all of these things, a big reason for that is because under the Constitution, only living men and women are afforded constitutional protections. So if you won't even identify as one of those two, there's no possible way that you are going to stand and get your constitutional protections. You're giving them away because you won't even identify as a living man or woman. It's a psyop.
That's like a light bulb right there, Jiggy.
Yeah, it hit me pretty hard when I realized that.
Wow.
And no man may question another man's divinity. So each of us define ourselves, and no one can question what our definition is. And we can confer nationality onto ourselves at any given time for any reason necessary, by any means necessary. So we can just say, I'm a citizen of, I'm a national of this place. And you're now a national of that place. Instead of saying I'm a U.S. citizen, you could say I'm a state citizen of Illinois, or I'm a state citizen of Maryland, or what have you. Or you can create your own micronation and say I'm a citizen of this nation. I'm an ambassador from this nation, and you're no longer a U.S. citizen. Now, you still have a U.S. citizen because that was created by the United States. You still are the authorized representative. You just need to correct your relationship to that entity, create a separation between the two. Now and people are like, well, I don't ask permission. I don't want to give these notices. I don't want to file these affidavits. Why are we asking permission to not be U.S. citizens? And it's like, no, you're giving notice. You're expressing your divine trust authority within yourself and through the Creator and the life that's bestowed upon you to notify this thing that is assuming that this dead thing that is just words on paper in a foreign corporation, a foreign nation, city nation called District of Columbia. The U.S. only exists in District of Columbia. The United States corporation does not exist anywhere outside of District of Columbia. It's a two-dimensional overlay. It's an overlay of the actual land and the physical. And each state is its own nation. Each union state is its own nation. And so, when you create that distinction and you understand these things, then you can properly express yourself and ask the right questions. When they ask their questions, you answer with the question. You ask the right questions, and you basically, we can challenge jurisdiction. You can do a lot of different things that really put their little game and puts a kink in their hose, and they can't go further because the law's not broken. It works perfectly as it's designed. The statutes, the legal system is not broken. It's perfectly aligned with universal law, and that's why it works. And they won't violate universal law, because then they will reap the karmic debt. But if they can trick us into consenting, then they have consent, and they're not violating karma. They're not violating universal law. So they don't reap any karma because it's contractual consent. So it's really, it really goes to education. to knowing who you are, first of all, finding your connection to spirit, finding the inner voice, connecting to the inner authority, nurturing that relationship with source and nature, and then being able to express yourself as the inner authority. I'm the authority here. That's how I talk to police. I go up to cops. Cops come up to me and are you in distress? How may I help you? I'm the authority here. What can I do for you? But you've got to do it with respect. You've got to do it, speak with authority and respect, because you don't argue law on the side of the road in a traffic stop. These people are policy enforcers. That's why they're the police. Policy. They enforce policies, which are not law, they're statutes. And so if you don't argue with them, because they don't have the capacity or the knowledge to even barely do their job, let alone know what you're speaking about. And there's many times where I've interacted with police, and I've had them threaten to arrest me, or I asked them different things, and I say, look, you have a qualified immunity, correct? You know about these amendments. You think that I'm in your jurisdiction. However, I'm not, and you're about to violate my civil liberties that are not granted by you or anyone above you. They're granted by the Creator above all of us. And if you want to go ahead and violate these civil liberties that I've cited to you, and you want to proceed in your aggression and the costing of me, and you want to kidnap me, and you want to bet your life and your career and your well-being, like you got to put food on the table, you got a family, do you want to bet the well-being of your family that you know the law better than me today in this moment in time? And then I stick out my hands with, like, I look at them like, cuff me, then take me to your leader. Do you, and they look at me, and they look at me weird. And I say, do you answer to anyone? Do you make all of your decisions? Or do you have to answer to a sergeant? Are you the authority of yourself in this position? Or are you a subject? Well, I answer to my sergeant. Well, that makes a lot of sense. You're not even qualified to talk to me. I make all of my own decisions. Please take me to the person who doesn't answer to someone above them. Who's the authority here? And when you look at them and say, take me to your leader, and they don't know what to do. Most of them don't know what to do there. They just blankly stare at you for a moment, and you can see their wheels turning. And you speak to them with authority and respectfully, because that's what they answer to. Policy enforcers are trained dogs. They're the guard dogs of the attorneys. They bring birds back. They bring animals back. They serve the attorneys and the judges. Jennifer would like to speak.
Jennifer,
Thank you,
if you have a
Denai.
question. Yeah, that's okay. I think someone mentioned that, but I was having trouble accessing the mic. Jennifer, you can go ahead if you can hear me, love.
Yeah, sorry. I thought I wasn't muted and I was over here talking, and then I just checked and I was muted. I was telling Jiggy that that's my problem is I find it very hard to speak respectfully to these people. And I was having a conversation with my boss today about Thursday, because there's the hearing, because the attorney motioned to withdraw and I gave a response to it, but I also put in an objection to the income withholding order that they put in, because they're trying to take $450 from every single fucking paycheck I make. And so she says that I sound argumentative, and I don't know how to not, because they are fucking with my life, my very livelihood, my ability to keep a roof over my head and keep the car that gets me back and forth to work and keep food in the fucking fridge. So I don't know how to be respectful with these people.
Well, you could be argumentative without being disrespectful. How can you contest any controversy in law if there's no argument? That's the basis of legality. So that's the first thing I would cite to her. I'd be like, look, I'm not trying to be disrespectful.
Watch who you're arguing with, though.
Right. And if it's a
Watch who
gatekeeper,
you're arguing with. The cop on the beat doesn't need the attitude. They're not actually the one who's putting you in that position. Like Jiggy said, take me to your leader. Right? Identify that person. Go full rage on them.
ticket, sign without recourse, and deal with the judge.
Yeah.
which
I think
it's an administrative adjudication. It's not even a criminal court. These people are operating in an administrative jurisdiction. It's not even criminal.
And ideally, you'd position yourself so that they didn't have anything to garnish.
Right.
Right,
And then-
Jennifer. You need a trust. Can you send me or put how would I find you on Facebook?
I would definitely work on, it's difficult, Jennifer. You know, I've gotten heated with policy enforcers. I have chewed judges out. I have put judges on the back of their heels. And I've risked being at contempt. In fact, one judge says, "I'll hold you in contempt." And I said, I have a lot of fucking contempt for this court. Like, you don't have to charge me with contempt. I have all the contempt you could ever have towards you in this action. Fortunately, she didn't go further with that, and I was out of honor and I was out of line. So she could have prosecuted me or charged me at that point, because in law, the first who comes out of honor loses. The first who leaves the battlefield loses. And so, you know, going through my experiences and actually going up and approaching police officers and asking them questions, you know, hey, how you guys doing? I'd ask them questions like, did you guys know that you participate in human trafficking every day? And they're like, what? What are you talking about? I'm like, well, you know, you stop people in their day-to-day movements, and you give them shit, you try to find them, and you put people in cuffs, you take them to a location they weren't going to, and then you hold them for ransom, which you call bail, and you call this arrest, but this is kidnapping. You're trafficking people. I had, you know, so through going through those types of experiences, or even role playing with people, that helped me remain calm in those conversations. And it's still difficult because the adrenaline gets going, and no matter who you are, when your free authority is being impinged upon, you know, the hair on our necks go up. We go into, you know, Papa Bear, Mama Bear mode.
Violation.
Yeah, it is a violation.
It's a violation.
But legally, it's not, because we're under contract as U.S. citizens, and we're actually debt slave chattel property that are so it's, if you have that contract in place, this is like so George Floyd, for example, if you see that footage, they did nothing to him until he handed them his ID. As soon as they grabbed his ID, they choked him out, because he identified as that legal entity, that piece of plastic. They said, who are you? And he handed him a plastic card that was created by the United States, and he identified as their property.
Hey, you guys, just as soon as you're done, Robin has a question, and then Carter has raised his hand. So Robin and then Carter, I like what you guys are saying.
Okay, thanks. So I think Bai was saying that she can't talk to her husband. He's a cop. So again, not a popular thing to say. And often, you know, women get angry with me for saying this. It's not that I can't speak for myself, but I'll tell you, if I feel emotional about anything, I'm pretty intense. And I seem to threaten men with sometimes I know a lot, or maybe it's my tone or the way I say it. But if there's something I need to communicate and I'm emotional, Yossi can communicate it so much better, and people listen so much better. And if I have to, when I have something to say, and I'm already ADHD or whatever label, I don't identify, but that's, you know, the closest I can describe, then I'm everywhere. So it's hard to maybe speak. And then I'm a woman, so I'm speaking the way a woman does. And so I might say something that sounds crazy, and then Yossi will go ahead, they'll look at me, and then he explains it. And then it all of a sudden sounds very reasonable and everything is okay. So I think what would help Bai is if we can maybe give her some information that she can communicate to her husband in a way where he can hear it and be convinced that what she's talking about is true. Maybe some websites or maybe some information. I don't know if that would help. That was really all I wanted to say.
Yeah, maybe also short of talking to another man, some men really have the guardrails on, right? So unfortunately, some men, and I'm not sure about Bai's person there, but
right, but info.
Some men are very resistant to information, especially if it comes from.
That's funny.
Yeah. Yeah, a good amount of men don't take women seriously.
Carter, you had your hand up, and then I had a question next.
Yeah, go ahead, Janine.
No, you first.
Oh no, I didn't have my hand raised. It's all good.
You're just pretending you had your hand raised. All right. So I was just going to elaborate on that. I'm not in any kind of situation like this with my daughter. I have had my own struggles, but in regards to what we're saying with communication, and Robin, exactly right. I would say that, like Yossi was saying, this can be easily inverted, right? Depending on someone's energy. You've got people who are more level-headed and better at communicating, or have, for me, I mean, I was one of the angriest, fiery people ever lived. Even in this house I live in now, there are doors with holes, trash cans that are bent. My ex-husband, who I'm still miraculously friends with, said that I would need a baseball bat and a punching bag, so that I could rip the punching bag apart with the baseball bat. And that was his suggestion. So long story short, Jennifer, by anyone who's struggled with anger, that is one of the primary things that I would work on. Jiggy, I'm a ginger, say no more. Right. And by two, red hair, blonde hair, anyone with an anger.
I qualify as a ginger too. That's funny.
Right. Well, Jennifer, I mean, I've read some of your posts. I mean, even the way you talk in the group is confrontational unconsciously. I'm not, of course, I'm not singling you out.
It is a problem. It is a problem though.
So it's something to work on. Right. So
and it might not be a problem. I mean, it's your shadow. It might just be that's your shadow. And if that's your shadow, then that's where your number one gifts come from. So your number one gift is you're a ferocious mama bear who's going to tear somebody's fucking head off. Right? At the same time, don't be tearing somebody's head off just because the milkman's coming to the door. Right? It's not always the enforcers of the policy. It's the policy itself you have to go after if you have some kind of disagreement with it. And ideally, you'll position yourself correctly so that you'll be coming in there with the proper capacity and agency so that they won't laugh at you.
Or worse, tase you, right? Or worse. If you're a man, right? And in Jiggy's case, that could have worked out really horribly. Coming from, the horse's mouth, so to speak, I would say that one of the greatest gifts I've ever given myself is breathing through the anger, working on that particularly in the last 4 years has got me to the point where now, although I still find myself feeling impatient, frustrated, dumbfounded, aggravated, I can notice those emotions without acting and without even someone else knowing that I'm feeling those, because emotions are not always the truth. These reactions that we're having have more to do with us than they do the other person.
Right.
Right. So that's just my little 2 cents. And again, coming from someone who would has probably physically fought with every partner I've ever been with in one way or another. Right. And maybe vice versa as well. But I am I've been fighting my whole life, and anger would be my middle name for, a variety of reasons. Integrating that, again, this isn't something wrong with you. It's not a problem. It's something to be aware of. It's something to
be integrated.
Yourself.
Like
that's right.
Be aware of
like you said. What is it that's making that happen? What's your earliest memory of that? And working to heal those wounds, which is why, again, in this group, this is like the foundation, right? Before you take action, you have to really know yourself, right? So that's my best advice.
It has to come first. And just know that if you're talking to a man, ladies, know for certain that if you're coming at a man angry, no longer does he see a sensitive woman who is nurturing and requires his protection, right? And now if you're a stranger even as a woman, and you're losing it and you're coming at somebody aggressively, it's hard to have compassion as a man. It just is. We see aggression as aggression, and we see it as a male trait. Unless a mother is protecting her children, right? And that's very hard because that's always obfuscated. You rarely will see that. It's usually psychological before it ends up in a spot where a woman's really losing her shit. But know that if you're talking to a man, maybe get a male buddy to talk to him instead, or find some outside counseling. If you're in conflict with a man and you're a woman, know that, you know, he might see you more like a man than a woman.
The other thing is to remember that, like, if you can to speak calmly and authoritatively, you know, that will get you respected and noticed more, you know, and you speak intelligibly. You don't go ignorant on them. But if like I said, it's unfortunate, but like if you hit that naggy tone and these men have someone in their life that they nag, like you sometimes we can't even hear you because it's
like
just it's like the ears shut off and all we hear is the teacher from Charlie Brown, except for it's way more annoying. And that alone can send a man into a rage. And so, you know, if we know that, then, you know, it's about shifting that. And a lot of my, you know, like I never had someone pull a gun or threaten to tase me. I'm pretty good at being able to gauge where people are in their emotions and aggression. I've had some really intense interactions with cops, but the only time that I ever had a cop put his hand on his gun was it was a forest ranger, and I had slept in the wrong campsite. I hammocked between trees that were just across the campsite line from the campsite I was with, and he asked me to identify, and I said, "Oh, I don't use ID. I don't carry an ID. I'm not a U.S. citizen." And he instantly put his hand on his gun and told me to turn around and put my hands up, and he was going to, you know, arrest me. He was in complete fear and thought he was in danger, and I told him, I was like, "You have nothing to worry about. I don't wish you any harm. I'm confused about why you're reacting and responding to me in this way. I don't really understand what's happening here." And he was like, "We'll talk when you're in handcuffs and sitting on that bench." And I turned around and I just assured him as he was approaching me. I did what he said, and I said, "You're in no danger. I wish you no harm. I don't understand what's happening here, but everything's okay." And, yeah, and then once he got me handcuffed, he felt calm, and I was able to sit down and have a conversation with him. Turns out, and he was calling me a sovereign citizen and all this other stuff. And I was like, "I'm not a sovereign citizen. I'm a sovereign." And a sovereign citizen, you know, I explained the contradiction between the terms. And he had been assaulted by someone identifying as a sovereign citizen, and they have been trained to fear people that they're radicalized. And so I had a conversation with him, and he was like, you know, he did his authority thing. "Well, I'm not going to cite you, but you're going to walk down to that front of the campground and you're going to read the rules on the board, and you're going to, you know, you go read those rules, and then we'll be okay." And you know, and I just was like, "Look, there's people like me out here. We don't wish you any harm, and in fact, I appreciate you doing what you do and putting yourself at risk, because I understand. You see, I understand that you're me, and if I hurt you, I'm harming myself. And I do also understand and accept that there are people in this world that don't understand that. And there are people in this world that need a guy with a badge and a gun to prevent them from harming other people. So I'm grateful for you, but I'm not what you think I am. And I think that, you know, I told him, I was like, "I think you should continue with your therapy." And the way you responded to me was totally, it was not in alignment of what was actually occurring.
So,
Well, I do think that for men it is different the way that we handle things, and on some level it might even be inappropriate for us to give any kind of advice to a woman as to how to manage her affairs or whatever. At the same time, you know, that comes with a big disclaimer on it. Women need each other. Like y'all women need to have a women's group.
yeah.
If you could find women who are very similar to you, and or you know, just any random woman will be able to give you the information that you actually need when you think you need something along the lines of some legal suggestion or whatever. See what I'm saying?
Really
But
appreciate
Yossi,
your input as a woman.
Well, my advice is not to tell you what to do or
Oh,
you know,
no.
directed directly at women. I'm just sharing my
No, I really
experience.
appreciate
You know,
It is
That's
good to hear how you've handled situations like that. You know, it's good for me to hear things like that, and for you to be saying the things, you know, about coming in honor, and, you know, just because you're argumentative doesn't mean you're combative. Like, you know, it's like, I don't know, it makes a lot of sense to me what you're saying. I just really need to work on it. And I know Bai commented in the thing about, you know, she's got CPT. Hello, me too. And I deal with, like, my nervous system is dysregulated. I mean, I've gone through things since fucking young age. So I mean, I have a hard time. Those feelings got shut off at a young age because I got punished for them. And it's like a bottled up kind of thing, and I don't know how to express them correctly. So that is part of my issue, I do believe. But yeah, we should definitely talk about some things.
I think every woman has a certain degree of PTSD or CPTSD.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw.
Specifically CPTSD, because we're dealing with a narcissistic culture, right? And it does tend to bring and amplify those traits in men that are our worst. It amplifies them. Like what Robin was saying, you know, if a man can't take care of his family how he knows to, he is automatically feminized. And
Yeah.
that thing will develop, you will have a lot of psychological baggage that comes with that.
It
So
is really fucked up how they treat men today.
I think most everyone is suffering from some sort of PTSD. None of us have been, part of our education isn't how to cope or even engage with our emotions. Our culture has taught us to shove things down and keep moving. Women are taught to keep silent. Men are taught to keep silent as well. We have to look strong. We have to appear to be, you know, the fearless defender, and we have to be the provider, and we have to be the protector.
stoic, exactly. That's the definition of a man, right? Whereas as men, sometimes we do also need to vent. We also might need to cry. But when we cry, it's by ourselves in the middle of the forest, if we could find one, hugging a tree, right?
Yeah.
When it's really bad. If we show our tears, even when women say, you can cry in front of me, we know better. You know, we know that on some level that's inappropriate. It's inappropriate. It's only appropriate because the culture that we've created has made a bunch of men who don't know how to handle their emotions by themselves, and then they explode on women.
So, you know, you were saying that that we need a women's group, and there's a lot of women's groups out there, and it would be nice if we could get, you know, emails or whatever, or Facebook, and connect. We have places for that kind of support. Yossi and Jiggy and all of you that have information that can help. Yossi specifically helping Jennifer to get these kids or whatever she needs to do, and help by navigate, you know, these things. We need you too to be in, you know, to be in here. And we really appreciate the answers, you know, in a way around this horrible mess. And the other thing is, if somebody took my kids, I would not hold my rage back anymore. And man, I don't know what would happen. I guess the only thing that would keep it down is knowing the only way I could get them back is to not be a crazy woman, you know. But I don't know how you'd breathe in and out and be okay at all, much less regulate your emotions if you don't know what's happening with your children.
I've had a
Through
very
the nose.
interesting life.
Through the nose is how you would do it. You would breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. Long, deep inhales and exhales. That's the whole thing right there. Yep. 4,
No,
7, 8.
you find a way to make it through. Like, honestly, if I let go the rage that I have, I would end up in prison. And then I'd never see my kids. So that is always in the back of my mind.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah, there's a breath technique that can regulate you really quickly. It really helps if you do 2 quick inhales, deep, quick inhales in through your nose, like a there's a mechanism in the human body.
That's what they said to do when I was having contractions.
Yes, it's the same technique. It's the same technique, and it regulates you very quickly when you're in an extreme situation.
Good deal. Yeah.
Okay. Hey, so yeah, that one that Jiggy's talking about, I was just gonna say that is that I have had, you know, CPS involved with my daughter. There's been twice when She was in a facility. We've been through hell and back, again, not with a partner over the children. I was a single mom, and my ex-husband is her stepfather, 10 years. So I didn't have that same problem. But yeah, Jiggy, I mean, so many of us, it's so scary. And one of the things that I had to, that really saved me and my daughter's relationship and keeping us out of this legal arena was me working on my anger, like I said, and that breath work and communication and not killing the messenger and not allowing your frustration, like Yossi was saying, with the system, to kind of kill the messenger there. Because again, a lot of these people who we're angry at, they don't know better. They've been fluoridated. They've been vaccinated. They've been brainwashed in their own way. And, Ram Dass says there's no difference between the prisoner and the prison guard. They both have hearts, they both have families, they both, they just identify as, one identifies as a prisoner and one identifies as the guard. So trying to work on your breath is a great idea. And that double inhale, exhale that, Jiggy is talking about, and Yossi through the nose, hilarious. Just breathe in through your nose. I mean, there's no wrong way to do it, but that double inhale, exhale, the offloading of the carbon dioxide. So it's breathing into your stomach as big as you can get and taking a big breath. And then at the last minute, you take another little sip of air through your nose. So it's like, right. And you can do it out your mouth. You can do it out your nose, but I would highly suggest looking up that breathing technique. That's what dogs do when they need to regulate their immune system. You'll see animals do it. That's what we do when we cry and we can't cry anymore and we're sobbing and you just, and that is, yeah. And then Jiggy, yeah, you can do short and then long. You can do long and then short, whatever feels good to you. But that is one of the things that really helped me cope with a lot of my anger and hurt, which is, anger is just hurt in disguise. So, working with these breath and everything. And I will say just to the women, there's lots of women groups out there. But if anyone just wants to do some breathing, anytime, just hit me up. We can do, 5 minutes or hurt.
We were actually thinking of doing like a pro bono type session, breathwork session, at least once a week. And
that'd be great. Even at the beginning of a call, maybe a little early.
Because
great idea.
Because what we find is that it's great to have band-aids and ways of breathing during times of high anxiety. What's best is just like everything else, right? You position yourself correctly so that when that trauma comes, you already have a breath work practice. Your diaphragm has already been stretched. You already know how to breathe. And then from that place, your body's autonomic nervous system can just take over and do what it does best, just keep you alive, keep you calm, right? But you need a practice. Everybody needs a good breath work practice.
The other thing,
Robin had a question, and then Robin had her hand raised, and then Jiggy, I'd love to hear
Thank
what you
you.
have to say.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to say that I am so not opposed to a women's group of us. I think it'd be awesome if you wanted to do that. I'm all for it and will help in any way I can. That was the only thing, because we're kind of like-minded in that, I get it. So, I mean, you get it.
Dr. Carter wants to know if he can come.
That depends on what you identify as.
I actually have a women's group that I go to every Thursday. We call ourselves the Misfits.
Oh, that's not that. I can understand that. That's how I feel.
How appropriate.
That
I think
sounds
most
more
of us,
appropriate than a lot of the women's groups I've seen, because I don't join a lot of women's groups because I'm not really, I don't know, let's just say
I'm still kind of one
it.
foot in and 1 foot out with this one. I will be honest. When I first tried to go, I felt like, the women in the group were like petty and catty, and they like gossip about each other. And it was just very off-putting to me. I went to the meetings where it was like, a group of us got together, but it was men and women, all ages. And, there's other ones for like codependency and anxiety and like all kinds that are around here where I live. And, it's usually men and women, but they've broken off and done men's groups and women's groups. But I never went to the women's groups because I was kind of scared to get involved with that kind of vibe, but they have it really is an awesome place to
Yeah.
sit with other women who understand and can feel your emotions, and it is like a sisterhood, you know.
It's
It would be
true.
great though if you
It's
guys could take this little sisterhood you got going on here though and branch off,
That would be
since you all
great.
kind of know each other a little bit.
It
Dr.
changes.
You might not be able to come.
it's got to be a safe container. You know, if you're worried about people gossiping or judging you or
Yeah.
that type of stuff, you're not going to be available to really open up. So that's, that's the key. And I've been in groups where it's been mixed, men and women, and then the men and the women will separate and go do their session, and then the men and women come back together and sometimes have a group session. But I think men's circles, women's circles, that's something that, that develops a family type relationship. And, family doesn't have to be nuclear, family familiar. It's family familiar. So if you're familiar with someone, you can become family. The one thing I wanted to say about what Yossi had said about laying the foundation for your breath work and that helping. The other thing is the foundation of your knowledge. If you know what you're saying is accurate, if you've done the due diligence and you know that you're the authority and you know what your position is and you know that you are legally and lawfully correct, that alone will allow you to let go of that resistance to the ignorance that's telling you you're wrong.
So can I ask your
Right. Then it becomes more comical and less of a thing, and not comical in the sense of like passive aggressive, I'm laughing in your face. Comical in the sense of, okay, this person doesn't know. It's all
Yeah,
good. I've got compassion for you. Let's go through the ringer. Let's, you do whatever your job is, and where your job ends, I'll take over.
right. It helps me see them as more of like an ignorant child, or, and I don't yell at toddlers. You know what I'm saying? So why would I yell at someone who's just as ignorant in what I'm talking about? And ignorance just means not to know. So to argue with the fool is to waste your energy. You started to say something, Jennifer?
Yeah, then I was thinking about how I can approach the judge without like offending him, because I really don't have any respect for him.
Closed quarters, closed chambers.
Yeah, closed chambers.
Closed chambers, what you have to say will compromise the revenue stream of the court and could possibly put the court's integrity into question for the rest of the people sitting in the courtroom. Because what you're up against is the
Yeah.
judge's ego specifically.
Right. Anytime I've stood up to a judge, they either have you go last and wait in the hallway, or they will get you out of there immediately.
Oh yeah, they got me
Yep.
out of there immediately the last time I went. And I didn't even really go up against him. I just filed the paperwork, signed like I wanted it to be signed. And he asked me what it meant, and I started explaining it, and he just reset the hearing.
Right. Because they don't want the people to hear. They don't
Yeah.
want people to
Yep.
hear what's going on,
This one Thursday is by Zoom. So it's I mean, there may or may not be people in the courtroom. I don't know because I'm not there.
Is it required by Zoom? Because I would I would
They
refuse.
noticed it.
Like
They
for me, I would
noticed
never
it
be
by
able to do that.
Zoom.
What's that?
They noticed it by Zoom. Like, and I've noticed. So like my attorney, when he filed his motion to withdraw, he did not give me proper notice, because you're supposed to give, according to the Michigan code, the rules for the courtroom, you're supposed to give 21 days before the hearing. He did not give me 21 days. He gave me
That'd be a separate case that you would need to file against him. You need to make a complaint, and that would be a total another case to hold him accountable.
Okay.
Yeah, but it sounds like if he violated procedure, then you absolutely have a case.
So, but that was what I was going to ask you earlier, now that we're back to it. So when I was talking to my boss, she's like, because she helped me draft the response to his motion to withdraw. That's why I love her so much. But I found in the Michigan code, the rules for professional conduct, that it says that a lawyer who helps draft paperwork for somebody who is like, not in these words, but not technically their client, that they have to put like a little thing at the bottom of it that this document was partially or whatever drafted by attorney who is licensed to practice in the state of Michigan, bar rule, whatever, blah, 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 blah. And she didn't even know about that. So I brought it to her attention, and I was like, don't worry, I'm not going to say anything, because, I am finding that if I am, like, I printed off a book, it's like almost 200 pages, and it's called The Law of Lawyering. And I have found so much good information in there. But like, going through the professional conduct book for Michigan, the Michigan rules, for the courtroom, I'm finding things, but when I bring it up to her, she says I sound argumentative.
Well, their job is first of all, their job is to protect the court. Their job is to challenge you. And most of the time you're not going to, like, the first time you say something to them, they're not going to accept it. They're going to ask you 2 or 3 times, that deny me thrice, ask me thrice, the age old wisdom. They're going to follow that. Because what they're doing is they're making sure that you actually comprehend and know what you're saying. Because a lot of people come in there regurgitating things and parroting things that they've heard, and they don't fully understand them. And so that's why she's saying that. And if you don't fully comprehend it and you can't express it properly in court, then she's going to assume and also categorize you as being argumentative to try to discredit you or disqualify you as disqualify your point. This is
Sense. Makes
yeah.
sense.
And
but like Bai was saying earlier, with the dealing with the things from the past, when I am in a confrontational situation, something that I feel affronts my very person, like I am immediately going to go into that fight or flight. And there are things that I am not really going to be able to control about what comes out of my mouth.
well, not with that attitude, you're not going to be able to.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
facetiously, if you don't think
I'm
that,
laughing over here because
it,
I'm sorry, Jim, but I would agree.
if you don't think that you can, you won't be capable of doing it.
Well, see, I honestly don't think I should even have to be able to.
Right, but that's something you're going to need to rectify inside of yourself. I agree that none of us have, a U.S. citizen does not have control over their lives. And we've been born into slavery. We've been indoctrinated into slavery. We've been told that we're free. And we've been also required to get licenses for everything we do, which is a permission. We have to register all property, which means we don't own it, and then we pay taxes. No one that is a U.S. citizen has control over their lives, and whether we acknowledge that consciously or not, subconsciously we know, and that's why there's this, this aggression and resistance and that fight that you're speaking about. And so if you can get to a place where you accept that, okay, this is the situation. I'm born into a slave situation. I'm born into a slave camp. I'm on a farm. These people think they own me, and it's up to me to express myself and to remain in honor, because the rules of the game say that you must remain in honor. So and I'm with you. Like, I'm angry. I still am working on the anger that I have for the systems that are in place, for the lies that I've been taught about world history. I constantly am studying and coming more and more aware of things that are not true, that we've been conditioned to think are true. And, I have, when we think like this and we speak like this, we tend to be ostracized and excluded and voted off the island from societies and friend groups and things like that.
Please,
and
the island already.
Yeah. And so it's like, and that's even more traumatic, to have the people you love and that you care about, that are your friends, basically tell you that you're crazy because they haven't spent the time, or they are, they are still suffering from Stockholm syndrome and they're asleep.
Outside pineal gland.
Yeah, and like I said, even with the black sheep, there's a good amount of the population that can't see this. They can't see this. They're not capable because they just don't have their DNA. Certain parts of their DNA is not activated, and they don't have the capability of recognizing this. But it takes a small percentage of us. I think that's what the 144,000 number is talking about. A very few small part of the people are going to realize this, and once that percentage is able to hold that resonance and stand in their authority, things will shift quickly.
That's that 100th monkey right there.
That was thank you.
Hey, I'd just like to say that Shane has joined the call, and I know there's a few other people on the call, so I don't know, if anyone has any questions or any comments or anything moving forward they want to discuss, please feel free. And Shane, I just wanted to say mahalo, and if he's still there, that podcast was awesome. And if you guys missed it, Shane has a really cool podcast on the work he's doing with bees, which is on the Trust Medicine people. So you guys definitely check it out. Very, very healing.
And is that Mr. Shane or is that
Oh,
Miss Shauna?
there was a Shauna, I think. Oh, I'm so sorry. I mistook Shauna for Shane. So Shauna.
No, the bee man is on the call
Oh,
occasionally. I think he comes
yeah.
on as something different.
Okay, I thought that's right. No, and he comes on as something different, but that's Shauna. And I was just looking at who was on. Yep, my apologies. But you guys
Yes,
check
ma'am.
out his video anyway. It was awesome. And Shauna, if you
It
want
was
to add or
great
anyone
video.
else wants to add, feel free. And Jiggy, great information. Everybody, you'll see everybody, just awesome. Yeah, I agree with Jiggy was saying everything Shane has to share is amazing. And because we are dealing with, healing, I'm just going to say that, this is about trust. And I certainly have other questions about trust. I don't have one formulated now, but I want to learn more about these, how to be as free as possible in the slave society. But I will say, just as far as, what we've been talking about, for me, healing myself and conserving energy has been invaluable. It has also disconnected me and in a way reconnected me, although not physically, but in a more spiritual level, with my family, with everyone that, has not accepted my awakening, whatever, we call it, whether it's chosen ones or stuff we know that we think other people don't know. It can be very devastating, and it has been. But it's also been, back to what Yossi said about in the beginning, we asked a question like, James asked a question, what is, the one obstacle you would remove if you could? And Yossi said, just the thing inside of me that would have wanted to remove the obstacle, because the obstacles are the healers. The obstacles are the things they are the things that bring to light everything we have to work on individually and culturally and universally and otherwise. The obstacle is the thing.
Yeah, sounding like a Buddhist right there.
Well, right.
That's
It
exactly
comes
what the
back
Buddha
to
would say. Equanimity in
That's right.
equanimity. I'm present with what is occurring. It doesn't need to stop.
That's right. And that's what we stayed on the call a little while after last week, and it was just invaluable information. And I know, Dennis, you stayed on the call too. And I just, Mr. Wild, I just wanted to shout out and say that we were just about to engage you when you hung up. So we were not leaving you out by any means. And I know a lot of times you don't prefer to speak, but we just want you to know that we saw you, and you're always welcome. So thanks, guys. Work on self. Self is all we have. Other people can do whatever they're doing. And if someone engages you in an argument and you don't know what to do, you don't know what to say, the best thing you can do is take a breath and don't say anything. If you can,
Yeah.
you can't think of what to say, don't say anything. If they give you an
And if you really
ultimatum,
want,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, if you really want to be potent with it, try to rephrase what they said in the form of a question and ask them back if it's that, just to clarify.
Sure.
Yeah.
Always clarify, and ask them, this is what I'm hearing. Is this what you
Yeah,
meant? And then
correct.
if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. I mean, it comes back to the kind of like, I guess the ABCs of the Tao or whatever we want to call it. It's been invaluable, because my energy, I'm telling you, I was almost dead from the stress. And if you're stressed out, anyone on the call, girls, battling, divorcing, anything, you can do nothing for yourself, your children, your community. This is where I'm at in the beginning, where people are asking, what is your vision and purpose? I don't even know. I'm so exhausted, right? From that leaking energy that I've really had to come back to my center, and I'm asking those questions. Who am I? What do I want? What do I want to contribute? And how am I going to go about that if I'm angry and impatient and reactive and living in my emotions, right? So this is something that all of us at one point or another, we have to face ourselves. It's like what is the saying? Something like paraphrasing, but the real warrior is the one who conquers herself or himself, and nobody else.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that the purpose is for someone who's going through that, our purpose is to lay the foundation for a healthy environment and comfort within our body because, you know, you can't build on sand, right? So we have to lay the foundation. And that's a big, huge question. What's the purpose? What's your, you know, vision when you feel like you're barely managing to do the most menial tasks for yourself each day, or if you're in a depressive state, or you know, it's very much you got to put the oxygen mask on before you can help someone else type thing.
Yeah, do that breathing. And what I honestly found in the most painful hurt and betrayal from my marriage, the most angry I've ever been in my life, was that I was just deeply, deeply hurt, you know, and to heal that hurt, integrate that hurt, right? It's not like, oh, we're going to get rid of it and every day is going to be great. It's noticing that you're hurt because nobody else noticed. It's being there for you. Like, women's groups are great. This group is great, right? We all need it. We all need community. And then we all need silence, and we need to be alone, right? And we need to question and really ask ourselves these really tough questions, you know? Write them down if you have to. You know, this is where I started. And again, I'm not here and then, you know, I wasn't there and now I'm here, but I digress. What I really found was through all the hurt and anger with my husband, when I approached him with kindness, his anger was out of control, right? And what I realized was it wasn't just me. It was a dynamic of two people who hadn't worked on their anger. And that helped me have a great compassion for this person who is very different than me and doesn't believe in the same things as me, doesn't see the same way. And yet we can go to dinner on Christmas and have a conversation because I don't need him to be me, because I'm more comfortable with me now, you know? So just take some attention, but the attention needs to be on the self. If we're really to help each other, then again, we have to know that we can help ourselves, right? Be the best version of ourselves. And that's, I think, what we're trying to do here. Yeah, Jiggy. I mean, great. Jiggy said, you know, I'll let you speak, but he said, I used to think I was a healer, but I realized I can only heal myself, and there's no savior but the self. And I can only, you know, Jiggy says, I can only be an example for others, and each must heal themselves. And that is, amen.
Yeah,
right?
it's a paradox too,
A
though,
woman.
because when
That's
you resonate as healed, that resonance will bring you to a point where you recognize that there is no self, right? So it's very counterintuitive. Like, the body is the way to spirituality, right? If you wanna become more spiritual, do something like yoga or some kind of somatic practice where you're engaging the body. It's the same exact way with everything. So I guess heal thyself until you realize that there is no such thing. And then when you realize there's no such thing, you're healed. Because then there's no separation.
Right. Well, you rectify the paradox. So if you can rectify the paradox or unify the paradox, then you realize that the self is actually a cell inside a larger body, and that you are attuning and aligning that cell of the body. A cell is a self. It sounds the same. It can mean the same. And yeah, so it's like it's getting out of that that binary thinking. You know, it's like we were talking about whether we respond to people who answer questions, and taking the moment to take a breath and to elevate, right? And to center. And like, for instance, today I had someone present a situation to me who was political, and they're like, so who's the good guy in this? And I sat and I thought for a second, and I was like, my answer was, do you think that in every situation one side is good and one side is bad? And why do you think that? Because that's just that's a black and white, all or nothing, yin yang perspective. You're saying that I must choose one or the other, and that doesn't make any sense to me. There are many situations where both sides can be good, both sides can be bad. And so, you know, taking that moment.
And most situations, both sides are both a combination of good and bad.
Right. But so taking that moment, though, allows you to elevate and not be guided or lured into this chute of dichotomy where you're going to be pounced upon. So a lot of these questions are leading, and if you can answer questions with questions, it's one of the most powerful things you can do, especially in the legality system. Because if you're making a claim, you have to prove your claim. But if you're asking a question, it's up to, it's whoever makes the claim first that must substantiate their claim. Yeah. And further the point about, there is no savior but the self. The point is there's nothing outside of you. There's nothing outside of you to save you. And so you're a conscious point of awareness and if you feel trapped in the body, if you feel like you're only human, then that's what you are. And that's how you experience in that moment, because you are the divine definer of what you are. And the universe will reflect back to you your inner divination. And, we think that, the idea of like seeking, right? If you're a seeker and you're constantly seeking, at what point do you stop seeking? When you find, like how do you know if you're never done seeking? And that's not to say to not stop learning, but I often say to people, there is no, like, another saying that's in our culture is when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Well, I think that's another statement that's cut short. When the student is ready, the teacher appears from within the student. You teach yourself. So if you can accept that, then you can accept that your parents didn't even teach you to walk. You watched them walk, you observed them doing something, they were an example for you, and you applied what you saw to your being, and you actually taught yourself to walk. You've taught yourself everything you know. That's how powerful we are.
Hey.
Since we're talking about sayings earlier, I wanted to bring up there's one saying that I found that really helped me. The mind follows where the body goes, and the body follows where the mind goes. And when I thought about that, it really made a lot of sense. And I just wanted to say that's it.
Sure, especially because you can control the mind and the body's biology with the breath, right? So you can essentially, if you can control the breath, you can control your life.
Yeah, like you said, where the mind goes, it made me think of abracadabra. As I speak, what I speak becomes.
Yeah.
And so, if you can look at the mind and the thought stream, as a river, and each thought is a droplet of water in that river. When we return to the breath, like Yossi's saying, we gain control over the focus, and then we can concentrate the focus on the thoughts that we prefer. And as we think, we speak, because most of us, a good percentage of us, hear ourselves think. That's a form of speech, and that ripples, and that's a rippling just as much as us speaking. So it's really about when we catch ourselves having a negative feeling thought. As soon as we catch ourselves having a negative feeling thought, it's up to us to pivot to the next better feeling thought. It's like wanting to change your language from saying I'm sorry or I can't or I'm trying. Like, these are all things that I've altered in my own lexicon, and these are languages, words that I don't use anymore, but the first thing you have to do is learn to catch yourself. And then once you become aware of it, then it's up to you to pivot, even if it's just the slightest amount. And so it's really the concentration of focus that we're honing, because we have access to everything.
So can I ask you guys what you think about the voice?
Yeah.
Or the voice to
What's
skull? I was going to ask you what you guys think about the voice to skull technology that they have.
Yeah, I've mentioned that last call. And I posted something on that today. It's being used, these devices that we hold in our hand, it flashes lights and it can activate and deactivate cells in the body. Like, they're using, so this is even more reason for us to strengthen ourselves and our ability to concentrate and focus, because you're right, there are additional stimuli to overcome that weren't here 10 years ago.
So, like, I am a very untrusting person. I have like huge betrayal trust issues. I think I may have gotten into it like on my first call with you guys. But when we're talking about the voice to skull thing. Like sometimes I swear I have thoughts that just pop up in my head that like I don't even, cause like I'm telling myself I don't want to go negative, I don't want to think badly, but it's like I've also considered the fact that I have been so vocal about certain things over the last 10, 15 years of my life that I may have actually been like targeted through the family court system to have my children taken away from me to make my own worst fears come true.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I caught myself, like you said, Jiggy, having a really bad thought, like after the whole cop incident with CPS and they left. And then I was thinking to myself that I would have to see my kids with a fucking visitation person, like that at the very least, let me see my children so I can say goodbye to them, because I wouldn't do that. I would not pay visitation fees to see my kids. I would leave and I'd go live my life. But
Do you think it might be an organic thing that's happening? Like organic is in like, when you get excited about something and you hold that resonance, it comes to you. Same thing happens with fear. Do you think it could be something like that in combination with some kind of technology? Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, it just makes me think, that it's highly possible. It's highly possible that there is some kind of system behind the system that's keeping us all in this shit, but they're all working, like we said, it's really diabolical, right? So
Right.
if I've been speaking out about things that get people locked up in jail in other parts of the world, what's to make me think that they wouldn't be watching me here? I'm sure I'm on lists somewhere.
We're
Correct.
probably all,
Yep.
we're
And
probably
then they're
all
just
on
waiting,
lists.
and they've got a lot of data built up on you,
Oh,
and they're
yeah.
just waiting for you to do something where you overstep to a point where they can scoop you up for something that you did in the past that you thought was off their radar.
Right.
That's something that happens every single day.
I happen to think that, the entities at play here in this holographic world that we exist in and we experience in is bigger, much bigger than a human consciousness and much bigger than us. And I think they know we're coming before we get here. I think are we targeted? Yes. Is there gang stalking? Yes. Is there technological gang stalking? Yes. Are these smart devices a weapon? Yes. All of these things are true. Is everyone being targeted? No. And are we being targeted all the time? Probably not. And if so, there's probably, algorithms and bots running that are they're just running basic or a certain level of distraction programming. And the meditation, the breath work, the honing of the focus, of the concentration, the ability to self-regulate, the ability to be in touch with your core and to be in touch with your emotions and to understand and to see yourself shift into different emotions and catch yourself in the present doing that, to be present with yourself. Those are all things that are going to allow us to overcome all these things. No weapons formed against you can prosper. We have the power and access to everything. And so, yes, these things are happening. And if you're catching yourself in that, and you're catching yourself going down, a vengeful thought pattern, and you realize it, you need to, in that moment, as soon as you can, have the conversation with yourself. Wait, this isn't what I want to feel. This doesn't serve me. This is programming right now. This is programming my future and how I think. And if I embrace these thoughts and I indulge them, I'm going to build more of this. And so, like I said,
Somebody said the other day in here that you need to operate from a place of love. And like I woke up the other day, so like I used to wake up every single morning fucking crying. It was awful. I feel like I'm kind of broken inside because of it, but I caught myself that morning and all day I was telling myself, just everything you do, operate from a place of love. And I swear to God, it got me through the day.
Yeah, the best way to do that is to do stuff for other people, like volunteer at a soup kitchen or rather than just leaving something as simple as rather than leaving the shopping cart right next to the vehicle that you get into, go and put it with the rest of the shopping carts, right? Stupid stuff like that adds up. That's how we operate from a place of love. Real simple stuff.
Yeah,
simple hacks.
And don't lie to yourself though. Don't if you're having ailments, don't tell yourself you're healed. If you're angry, don't tell yourself you're in love. Be present with the love. The Vipassana, like and Anapanasati. Yes, I went through a 10-day retreat this past May. Really powerful stuff. If,
Yep,
if
one of-
people have the ability to go to that, do that. But like the point is, there's righteous anger, and anger serves you, but vengeance is the creator's. So
Right. And that anger, you can experience it from a place of love. I am just so appreciative that this
Right.
anger is on my radar, that I'm not hurting anybody at this present time, and I'm able to connect with my breath. What a blessing.
this anger is guiding me, and this is a lot of energy. I can feel it coursing through my body, and I can harness this energy and I can flow it to this other purpose. I can store this up rather than letting it come out of me recklessly and then damaging my relationships or harming other people. And I can direct it to something productive. And out of self-love for your own, it's an opportunity to realize, oh, I have all these sensory perceptions. It's great that I'm able to know myself and how I'm feeling and these emotions that are flowing through me, and how, so for me, it's like, I can be angry at someone else, but in self-love.
I suppress my anger by hitting baseballs.
Okay. Yeah. Well, maybe you're transmuting. Like, we'll go to the gym, go for a walk, like all of those things that's a transmutation. You're not suppressing it. Actually, I would say that when you're smashing baseballs, I would say that you're actually processing and unpacking, and you're at least alleviating and expending that energy.
Yeah, it's the opposite. It's the opposite of suppressing. Then at that point, you are, like Jiggy's saying, that's transmutation. It's alchemy.
Right. It's like going and hitting a punching bag.
Yeah. Imagining faces.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Something like that.
Do you know that they just like to interrupt real quick to say that Robin in the comments was saying if you suppress your anger, you suppress your anger, you'll grow tumors, and it's dangerous, and that's for sure. And anyway, I won't read the whole chat, but I talked to my daughter last week, and I barely see her. She's moved out of the house, and I said, hey, what are you guys doing? Her and her boyfriend. And she said, well, we're in an anger room right now. And I said, well, what's that? And she goes, oh, you could just put on safety goggles and you break shit. And I was like, that sounds awesome. Yeah. So there might be an anger room near you if you get tired.
I don't know how to feel.
Yeah,
I don't know how to feel about all that,
right?
because
Yossi, that was my initial reaction, because it was like, okay,
right?
Yeah, but
what we're talking about here is associating in a Pavlovian way anger with violence,
with great,
right? And that violence is the only way to express that anger. And
I was going to say, there's another
like
side.
Vipassana is much more powerful to meditate.
Yeah. I would play the piano or ride a horse or do something. But if you don't have a piano or a horse, but I think my daughter has an anger problem. She made something in her basement that she stabs. It's a bunch of pillows, and now she's much better. So now she just has a punching bag, but she goes to this place where you throw hatchets and you throw axes. And I mean, she loves it. She swears by it. So
maybe for people who aren't like my daughter won't hurt a fly, but she has a lot of internal anger, right? And where I was the opposite. My anger was all on the outside, and the hurt was on the
I don't know
inside.
about training you women to be ninjas. I don't know how well that's going to work out on this end.
I'd just stick with the.
You guys stay away from my wife, please. No fancy ideas in your women's group.
Going to the anger rooms.
I'm not promoting the anger room. I just thought for those who absolutely won't harm other human beings or make that horrible connection, that it was something that, let's not promote them, but it was just something. Yeah.
I mean, I think that letting the anger out in the healthiest way that is available to you in the moment is good. I'm with Yossi about the anger rooms. First of all, I'm not going to pay someone a fee for that. I'm probably going to go to like a salvage yard or, go find a junkyard that I can just wander around in. And it's no big deal if I smash some stuff up. And
go full office space on a printer.
On a printer, right? Yeah. But, and then also the idea that if you're going to an anger room, now we're talking about like what kind of energy. That's an energy portal, and how many people are contributing to that energy, and how many people are leaving their anger there, and what entities are living there waiting for someone available to be attached to, and maybe you're leaving with more than you left
That's
there.
a fair point for people
Boom.
who
That's a
think
really
Not to
quantum.
mention, I wonder how many people are drunk when they go into those rooms.
Oh, maybe even my daughter.
Spirits flying all over the place.
Right. So you've got people basically vomiting all over the place, and you go in there and roll around in it.
Interesting. I had a
Yeah.
therapy where, I did that. So my initial, and it helped me a lot. I actually had a therapist who used to get plates from like Goodwill, and she'd just be like, just name it and break it, and back in the day, that's what worked, for me. Again, not long term. So, but that's a very fair point. Fair point.
Yeah, there are long-term strategies and short-term strategies. The long-term ones actually yield consistent results. The short-term ones should never be relied on as long-term strategies.
Yeah. Yeah, because although it helped me in the short term, right, that was years ago. And, again, what helped me the most was that coming back to center. So fair point.
Yeah, because, sometimes you get pulled over at a traffic stop and you don't have any plates to break. And if you do start breaking shit, you're going to jail, right? So you need some kind of mechanism that's internal, that's within you all the time. Like just simply the awareness of breath. It's the simplest thing there is. But once you start to focus on the sensation of the breath as it enters in through your nostrils and on the upper lip there, you're going to see that monkey mind will take you everywhere but that sensation of breath. And you have to just keep on going. Okay, cool. Yep. I see the fancy tricks. Yep. I saw you throw the poo. Yeah. Very funny. Very, very clever. Thank you. Thank you for that clever anecdote or whatever. Now, where were we? Oh, that's right. I feel it now. And then just keep returning to that over and over and over again. Each time you do, it's like a spiritual push-up.
Yeah, and using the anger to like, violence is one, like you say, associating with the violence, but that's if a man is not violent, he's not dangerous, and if he's not dangerous, he can't be a protector. And so I think even with women, if we're channeling our anger into our physical health and our physical capabilities, then and we're honing our ability to defend ourselves and others. Like a mama bear can be very dangerous as well. And so I think you're exactly right, and it's up to us to build these mechanisms and these habits and the familiarity with it inside of us, so it's there always, and we can activate it without having to go and jump a mountain. And I know, like myself, if I let myself get to a certain stage and a certain place of being worked up, well, I'll be able to, I've had times where I'm able to see myself. I know that I'm destroying shit, and I'm like, yeah, bring it fucking on. Like, I'll burn this bridge down standing in the middle of it. And that's not what serves us. That leaves us injuries, and we need to heal. So we get burnt, and we need to repair a bridge. So we were talking, did anybody post anything specific for information that to present with her husband? I mean, for me, I think that
as far as the vaccines go, I can give her tons of information.
Well, yeah, that, and then also I think the legal information.
I did send her an exemption form for the state of Wisconsin.
Well, I mean, for like to share with her ex, who's a cop. I think for me, like if he's open to this information, like I said, I've said this before, I don't agree with anything 100% that pretty much anyone says. But I do think that for a cop or someone who's a legal minded, institutional thinker.
And from my experience with him specifically, and those codes, it's going to be a very frustrating process for a woman to have to dig through him and everything that he said. And not to mention, should they need to ask a question, God forbid.
So
right?
Sure. His state national theory page is straight information. You don't have to watch his videos, and this would be to present to the man, the cop. That's why I would recommend him for the codes. I do agree he's crude and not respectful, but he's a bit of a shock jock. He's the Howard Stern of sovereign movement.
So if he's an Alex Jones follower, that right there could do it. What I honestly think is get him on the phone with some men who can present some information to him with you present, and and then go from there.
In my experience, police officers and things like that, they need an authority that they recognize.
Yep, like a constitutional sheriff. You want a constitutional sheriff on the phone,
or the codes laid out. The actual codes laid out in front of them.
Yeah, Bai is saying that he's a number and facts kind of guy. I'm bad at that sort of thing, and I am in this call because I'm not familiar with a lot of legal until talking to some of the people in this call. I mean, I am learning, but to Yossi's point, and Jiggy, you're so knowledgeable. A lot of that goes over my head. Jiggy definitely is someone, Yossi or Jiggy or anyone to talk to regarding legal stuff, in my opinion. But I was just thinking that a lot of this stuff goes over my head and it's hard reading for me. I don't know if it's because I'm a woman or I just, again, a lot of this stuff. So if there is anything like super layman's terms, I know that, again, Jiggy, you might have something for her, or Yossi, something easier to understand. I'm having trouble with a lot of the terminology myself, but I'm learning. That's why I'm here. So
I did too, and the terminology is difficult. It's a different language. It requires time with the dictionary, and reading codes is boring and banal. But when you start understanding what you're reading, and you start connecting the dots, you're like, wait a second. This statute here says that what they're doing is completely illegal. This is a complete contradiction. And once you start seeing that in the codes and you start understanding, like if he's an Alex Jones follower, then maybe he's more open to this information than he would be more open to it than someone who's not, because if he's listening to Alex Jones and he resonates with Alex Jones, who is a controlled opposition, in my opinion, but he knows about Bohemian Grove, he knows about the Skull and Bones, he knows about the secret clubs, he knows about these things. But one of the biggest things is realizing that the United States is a corporate government that is an overlay and a replacement for the republic. And once you start realizing that, that's one of the things that makes a huge shift. If you're coming from a religious perspective, there's a guy, Kelby, his YouTube is his advocates, and he breaks it down from a Christian religious perspective. So if he's a religious thinker or Christian, that might resonate with him more. I'm happy to speak to people, but I would refer them to, like I said, concise resources where the statutes are laid out. I have to give him his credit on that. He's done a very good job. I mean, he's got firsthand experience with his son becoming a lawyer and standing at the top of that story is so powerful. And that's how the attorneys think. They run everything. And if you stop and think about it, nothing happens in this world without it being approved by an attorney first. Every major corporation, every court, everybody in legality refers to their lawyer first. They is this okay? Can we do this? And it's up. So, that is one of the huge things that really pops it open. And earlier you said something about the Michigan rules, practicing with a license. No lawyer is licensed. They all practice under the bar. I have yet to find somebody who has found a license for an attorney. So it's a weird thing.
I just wanted to add on to that. I actually just came to this, it just came to me today, or at least it finally clicked for me today. So I noticed with just looking at the judges' oath of offices, their terms are for 6 years. And this is for every driver's license application anyone fills out. It says, are you driving for a school bus or a political subdivision? And then I had noticed that my license, has a 6-year term. And, I guess in one sense, the judges are driving, right? The court moves, they're driving a political subdivision. And it literally says that in the driver's license. So I could be wrong, but I almost want to say that is the bar card is just a driver's license if it's filled out in a certain way.
Well, I mean, I would say the bar card's a title of nobility. You get the bar card, you become an esquire, which is a title of nobility from the British accreditation registry. And so once you realize that, then you realize that any attorney that's ever held public office has done so unconstitutionally, and any legislation that they have participated with has never stood lawfully, because it's against the law for anyone with the title and nobility from the British Crown to hold office in the United States of America. Now, the key distinction being they didn't hold office in the United States of America. They held office in the corporation, which is foreign and federal to the United States of America, called the United States, that is Washington, D.C.
Right. And that would be that endorsement that because that's like a special part of that application.
Yeah, I mean, I think the political subdivision, I mean, the license, it's all tricky language. You know, license derives from the word licentious, which means to be sexually or morally depraved. That's why you need a license, because you're not morally sound to do that without permission. And so it's a contract, and it binds. Yeah, so it is just even getting one puts you as a part of a political subdivision. What idea is he very opposed to or defensive against?
From
I said something in a chant.
From what I gather, brother, and what I gleaned from it, is that he's more skeptical. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's that he might even be on board, but he feels like they do have the authority to vaccinate, and that he doesn't want to come up against that. So he does need some information, some hand holding on this one. And that's why I was suggesting maybe a brotherhood, right? Some people who do have experience with this, who can help guide him through that process and reassure him that, his job is okay and so on, right? And that he's not going to come up against any legal ramifications simply by expressing his sincerely held religious beliefs and then standing on them.
So that is what I sent to her. The Wisconsin State Legislature, it's the immunization program, and it says that the immunization requirement is waived if the student, if an adult, or the student's parents, guardian, legal custodian, blah, 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 goes on and says that if they are objecting to the immunization for reasons of health, religion, or personal conviction. And that right there can be used. You can say it's for whatever, but if you quote that in there, it's on that form that I sent to you too. So you should that will take care of your schools, your nurseries, daycares, whatever.
Just don't quote health. Don't go with the health exemption. That one's going to be trickier. You're going to have to prove that one.
Then the next thing I was going to say to her, if she's worried about doctors, it's called an HHTFR. Or it's MTH. I'd have to look it up. It's been so long.
It's MTHFR.
MTHFR. Okay, yeah. So that's a gene mutation.
Motherfucker.
And that's exactly how I used to always remember it too, motherfucker. And you can actually ask for your doctor to test your child for that gene mutation, because children that have that gene mutation are, I don't know the word for it off the top of my head, but they're the ones that are likely to have adverse reactions to the vaccines.
They're at greater risk. Yeah.
At the same time, anybody will have adverse reactions to mercury buildup and
That's right.
monkey fetus juice and whatever it is that they're putting in these things,
Just
right? The
from
mRNA and all that.
So
that's why whenever you're going up against them and it's some kind of health exemption you're claiming, it's an uphill battle. I don't care how well documented it is, or even if you have the gene. Then essentially you're going to them and you're saying, grant me permission because of this specific instance in this fact. You're no longer standing on your ethics, your moral code. Then you really do need a license to ask them that, because you are without that moral compass. Whereas if you can just stand on those religious convictions, you don't need to argue about the details.
Even the personal conviction, that includes persons. That's a person. So and this is why the codes are so important. Even as banal and boring as they are, you're not opposing them. You're rebutting in their assumptions. They've been conditioned. It's our policy. Our policy requires us to do this. No, your policy requires you to to assume and to do this, but your policy doesn't require me to accept it. That's your policy, and I don't have to require it. And in fact, I think your policy contradicts the code here. And so can you help me clarify this? So if you're using the codes that they're bound by,
It is resistance, though,
you're
brother.
really on the same team.
I do get about going for the codes, right? And trying to point out to them logical missteps and errors and ways of doing a record correction process. Though at the same time, what we are talking about here is that not everybody is trained in legalese. Not everybody's trained to be able to read through the codes. So that's why, that's why if we just focus on those religious exemptions,
I was
speaking,
speaking, my last comment was directly to the vaccine exemption, the 252-04, section 3. You're just citing their regulations.
Yeah.
Look, this regulation says this is confusing. You're telling me I have to, but this regulation says I don't have to. And actually I'm protected, and this is within my rights and ability to choose this.
And there's another section in there. It's 252.041. It's about compulsory vaccination. But there's other stuff in there. It's like, there's a whole website for it, and she can read through it, but it does go on to talk about that, people will be vaccinated unless, and then it says, if it's likely to lead to serious harm of the individual. And that's the point of the motherfucker DNA gene test, mutation, to see if your child has it. Because if you can prove that your child has this gene mutation, and now, years ago when my children first were injured, like when my son was 2.5 years old, this is what I did. I spent the next decade researching vaccines and all of this shit. So in that, it is very likely that you would get them to listen to you about the harm that could be caused to your child because your child has a gene mutation. It's proof to the doctors if that was necessary. That in my experience, that gene mutation is like a factor for doctors to give your child an exemption, no questions asked.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that that's good information. I just wanted to say that Bai was saying that he doesn't understand, how a family trust works or how it would help protect us. And Bai, I would say Yossi offers a consultation. So you should get in touch with Yossi on that topic and, to further discuss the family trust. Just since that was a question of yours in the chat, I just wanted to address that was a comment, but Yossi could probably very much help you with that. And Jiggy with resources. Jennifer, I can help you any, vitamin or supplements, herbs, things like that. And you're in good hands.
Yeah. Well, anytime someone's threatening you like that, you just call them on that. You just say, are you threatening me? Are you saying that I have to do this, and you're threatening the authorities? Because you can be held civilly liable, and that's a violation of law. Like, and I know that you may not want to go that way, but like when people start threatening you with that stuff, that's exactly the reason they're doing it. It's because they're trying to get you to fall back in line. Sit down, shut up, raise your hand, and but this is where knowing the maxims of law, understanding your inner authority, and coming out from under the programming of this fear. And it is fearful. It's not a fun idea to be arrested or to have CPS come into your place or into your family. But it's if you're feeling threatened, that's guidance. You want to stay calm, but also don't be afraid to assert your rights and your authority and your personal authority. You can leave the hospital and then get a different doctor. What are they're going to arrest you for leaving with your child? That's nonsense. And so when you start going after these people and their exemptions, and the hospital doesn't want to pay a lawsuit, they don't want malpractice, so once you start, they threaten you. It's not a threat, but it's just like, oh, well, really? Well, did you know you're opening yourself up to this? You might not even be able to practice in medicine if you go down this road with me, so, and you don't have to say it that way, but they know when and So it's just we are being conditioned. It's, you know, we're cattle, and that's one of them that they're whipping us in, so we get branded.
Go ahead, Miss Janae.
Can you hear me? So yeah, I was going to say, when I noticed my daughter was having trouble with vaccines, like I mentioned before in the group, I did claim religious exemption when she was about 3 years old to halt all of that. And again, I know that you may have a different situation. I was going to ask Yossi, Jiggy, anybody in her case or in anyone's case, claiming religious exemption was really just a handwritten. I just went online, I got a template, and I wrote out according to my sincere religious beliefs. I did not have to claim, because it's not legal for them to ask what religion or whatever it is. But just as a side note, religious exemption, again, when there's two parents, I don't know the legality of that. I didn't know if that would be helpful for you, but that's when I stopped vaccinating my daughter, and I used the religious exemption. And I know that the trust that Yossi offers leans heavily on the religious, the hybrid trusts and the agricultural exemptions, if there's anything that could help you with that. I guess that wasn't really a question, but just,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well-
Absolutely. That religion can be defined as anything that you want it to be. And as a
Right.
mother, you can say that, you know, specifically in your religion and how you've raised your children, you guys have more of a hybrid approach. And as a mother, you do line up with Orthodox Judaism, and you know that your children will trace their lineage and their faith through the mother. And, you know, something as simple as that can be enough to be able to leverage everything that you need to be able to get your kids safe. But you do have to have some forethought to it. And it can't just be something that's half-assed, and you can't go at them confrontative. It has to just be very much, this is just the way it is.
So-
And that's it.
The
Right.
way it was explained to me in court is that because of the fact that we are both parents and we both have like equal rights to the children, that just because I did not want to vaccinate them based on any reason didn't mean that he didn't have the right to.
That's because those are public entities that the court is acting as party C in a dispute between party A and party B over their livestock, over the court's livestock, right? So because of that, there are terms and conditions at play that you don't have any business governing. You see what I'm saying?
That they're the ones determining it because it's like they're the referee in the ring.
No,
They are the referee.
they're the
They're the
parents.
referee, and they're the actual parents.
The government has authority under parents patria. They're the parent.
Mhm.
Even a
Yep.
U.S. citizen is a ward of the state. Where a U.S. citizen
Yep,
is on
they're
the
your
same level
parents
as a
too.
child.
They're your parents too.
You're
That's
all
why they're in
seen
there with the gavel.
right. They're
Come
all
on now.
seen. They're all seen
Yep.
as minors. This is why you have to reach the age of majority. The age of majority is correcting the record, standing in law, appearing on special appearance, knowing that you're only under trust with the Creator, and upholding the codes, holding them to the codes that they serve, while expressing your authority through the Creator as the living man or woman.
and now
Yep.
can I
And-
ask if that's only available during, like, in a trust? Because both of a lot of people here have, you know, the trusts, and how, Yossi, or anyone, Jiggy, could you explain how having this trust, or would, in this case, like, or in anyone's case, in the most basic terms? I mean, you're already
Okay.
explaining a lot, but if there's anything that just, why having a trust
Contract-
protects us against this?
Because contract law is the law of the land at its core. The Constitution is there as the guardrails, a firewall at best. But contract law is the law of the land. And a contract between you and your creator will always supersede any man-made contract, just because of the way that things are, and because this is a reflection of universal law. It's not doing anything that isn't found in nature. It's just sometimes obfuscating it with language. That's all that's going on. So you have to establish a prima facie, or rather a priori contract that
Right.
supersedes their contract. That first contract is the first one in line. That's the first one that they have to go to for their rules.
And there's the state, and there's no legislation, regulation, or legal code that can be passed that impairs a man or woman's ability to contract or to uphold a contract. Contracts are private. They can be private or public, but a contract of the people supersedes man's law because it's under God's law, and God's law supersedes man's law at every turn. And so like the main thing that you're doing is you're reaching the age of majority. You're claiming the age of majority. You're establishing that and you're demonstrating it for them. So they no longer have a claim over you. You're no longer confused thinking that you are the corporation, the ens legis. That is their property. It's created in your benefit and you can use it, but you can use it as the beneficiary, you can use it as the surety, or are you the agent for the principal? If you're the agent you're not the surety for the account. And so which is basically the collateral. You're expected to pay the bills. You're expected to follow the regulations. You're under the corporate handbook of all their codes. That's all these US codes and all UCC and all, the US codes, right? And the CFR, these are employee handbooks for employees of the government called the United States and District of Columbia. So when you express a separation and you notify them that you are the age of majority, you're the living man, and you express that you claim your progeny and all of your genetic material, you are also now separating the children from those entities. And so they're no longer surety or collateral for those entities. And so that's
Correct.
the major
And
distinction.
that is the major distinction right there. And then if you have a properly set up trust where you have ADR provisions and you have a private contract with the other party, party B, who would, in this case, since we're talking to women mostly about this, party B would be the man. And if you have some ADR provisions in there and a way that should there be a dispute over the children, whomever the godparent is where the children go in case there's any kind of discrepancy. Now what you've done is you've established a protocol for how children should be handled if they need to be taken away from the mother or father for any reason while they settle the dispute. If that
Right.
protocol isn't handled, it will fall back on the courts. The courts will continue to see them as their property that only they can come up with some kind of ruling over.
Yeah, and the arbitration doesn't have to be, it could be
In a library,
it could be a friend. Okay, if we have a
Yeah.
disagreement, we agree
Yeah.
that this person knows us both. This person is level-headed and can help us work through any issues that we may have. It's your private,
And
it's
are
your
safe.
private charter. Right.
Right, and the children are safe with them while we're working out our shit.
Right. If the
That's
children
what you
if the children need to be removed, we have this in place, because the way that they're gaining and piercing any veils of private trust is through the public safety. And if you can be perceived or identified as a threat to public safety, they now have valid legal, and they will use that to come in and basically put you under siege and take over the authority. So it's very, like you said, it's about preparing yourself and having all of this laid out. You said that he doesn't understand how a trust would help. Outside of talking to someone on this call or anything, there is one of my trust mentors is Sotel, and he has a podcast, and he's been doing it for years. And it's every Wednesday and it's recorded, and you can go and listen. And he does a very good job of explaining why someone would want to trust, what the trust capabilities are. It's extremely educational, and I recommend anyone who's interested in trust to listen to it. So I think that would be a good resource for your ex-husband to come to a greater understanding of why you might want a private trust, why you might want to build a family foundation or work towards building a family foundation or a family office, and why, how this can protect and build your generational wealth for not only your kids, but your all the generations to come.
And what was his name again?
Sotel, here, I can post a link to the podcast in the chat. He has a website. It's called welcometothefoundation.com. TrustLiveChat.com. And he also has a documents page there where it's a bunch of free documents that you can download and read. Like I said, he's very knowledgeable. It's who I've learned from a lot of my trust knowledge. It's he does offer services, but it's pricey services. But the education is top notch, and I think it's important for anyone who's going into trusts or to building a trust. I think it's very important for us to know how to administrate it and maintain it ourselves. We can bring in outside trustees but that puts us at risk. Any outside someone who's not part of your family brings in a risk, and so you need to trust.
Well, even then, with people,
even families are risks. Yes,
even families, yeah,
yes.
Especially
you said
families.
it's called Welcome to the Foundation.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
I had already found it while I was researching the other day. I just pulled open the window. Never mind.
Yeah.
Wow. Awesome.
But I'll put a link in the chat to the Apple. It's an Apple podcast that has all of his shows, and it's great. Like there's like 45 minutes of music, and then he goes through the current events, and then he goes into talk about the subject matter. He'll talk about trust for a little bit, and then he'll take some calls. Yeah. What were you saying, Yossi? Well, you're saying the family's risky.
Well,
yes.
Right. I'm saying that, even with you appoint trustees, just make sure that we never leave any of you out there just swimming without a lifeboat. So all of your trustees will always be appointed with expressly only the powers and duties that you want them to have. And that's it. They won't ever be able to do anything, no broad powers of delegation unless it's that chairman or chairwoman, whoever the principal trustee is. That's who gets to make most of the decisions and at least have the tying vote. So you never want to appoint trustees just carte blanche and let them do whatever.
Right. Yeah, some people recommend all kinds of things, like even like having a banker be involved in your trust, and it's just like, what are we doing here? Like, we're contradicting what we're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you do appoint a banker, you make sure that all they can do is exactly what you need them to do. Nothing more, nothing less.
Yeah. And I just shared the podcast link. That's one that goes into how to operate in the private. It's all business. You're starting a family business.
Thanks, guys. That was amazing. Really, really appreciate that. Thanks for the links, everybody. And Dennis Wild, he posted a link as well. Welcome to the foundation. So thanks for that.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I think that podcast would really help him understand. I mean, it's general information, so it doesn't really, just if you're talking in public about a private trust, you don't share proprietary information. You're not, there's like Yossi will, when we're talking, is even reference, well, this is private. But give you a generalized idea, and that's what you're going to get from that podcast. There gives a few nuggets here and there, but he's a genuine, good-hearted being, and he cares about people. And also, like Yossi said, he's not going to leave you. He's not going to leave someone hanging. And I think that for me at least, when I approach something, I have to look at it from as many perspectives as I can before I make my assessment, before I can move forward on it. So I like to look at a lot of different perspectives and hear what many different people are saying, and usually that helps me have a more comprehensive understanding of what I'm studying. It's all about empowerment.
Thanks, Jiggy. I'd just like to open up the floor. I know this is getting late. But I said he's generally pretty reasonable, and giving him the most possible makes a big difference in his decisions. So yeah, just like Jiggy said, this is, and everyone here, it's all about the education. And the more you know, the more empowered you are. The more you work on yourself, the more empowered you are, and making decisions, more based once you connect, your mind and your heart, or in Yossi's, once you completely lose yourself, you'll be able to serve others better. But I like how all of this is kind of coming together, and I just wanted to thank everybody and just open up the floor if there's any other questions.
I would just like to say I sent a private message to you, Jiggy, earlier, like way earlier. It was just a document that I have I got it from somebody who's had experience with this stuff, and she was trying to help me out. So I just wanted to get your opinion on it.
Okay.
I mean, you don't have to do it now, but
I can only scroll up so far in the chat. If you could send it again, I missed it in the chat.
okay. Well, I guess, I mean, I think because I even said in the message that I sent to you, you probably have to copy and paste it and put it in like a Word document in order for it to like really read right.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can't. I don't even see.
That's okay. I'll send
yeah.
it again. I found it.
Yeah, I'm happy. I'll be happy to look at.
Cool.
This type of stuff is.
Now, I
It's
will say this
intriguing.
one is like when things first happened with CPS coming to the house and the cops getting, called out here and like all the shit happening and it going to court and them suspending my parenting time. Like when that happened, I really was ready to just give up and leave. So this is what I would turn in to the people that I need to turn it into, and I would leave. This is like the get out of jail kind of thing, basically telling them, that you do not have jurisdiction or control over me or this case, like to void all of the orders in place. And there's another one that I have that's separate that would go to CPS. I don't know if I can find that one that quick. Hold on.
Is that the notice error of wrong party that you just sent?
Yep, I did. I think I just put it in the group chat.
Yeah, I did see that. I thought it was in the group chat earlier, and I was scrolled through it briefly. Is this just text that you have, or is there a source document that you could link me?
There is. I have it on my drive, and it's got like all the links and everything in there. It is something that was sent to me to edit to make it fit my case, but I haven't really done much other than put the court address in it because I'm not sure if this is the right avenue for me to go.
Right. I will say that if you're using templates and just changing out the names, that's it can be effective. But to me, if you don't understand fully what you're submitting to the court, it's very easy for them to discredit your knowledge and then dismiss you as someone valid speaking to the court. So you want to make sure whatever you include in your documents, you are well versed in and you can express in more than one way, and withstand questioning or being denied and questioned your authority. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I think this is the one that goes to CP in addition to any other powers. It goes on to talk about Michigan Child Protective Services, all the people.
Yeah, that's the other thing to realize is CPS is not a government entity. It's also a private entity that are subcontractors with the governments typically. Typically, it's not a state entity. Like one of the caseworkers that I dealt with my daughter in Kansas, she wasn't smart enough to be a Walmart cashier. It was abominable, really, really horrible. Good night, bye. Thanks for the questions. I'm glad that this was helpful for you.
Good night, bye. Good luck with everything.
Yep. Good night.
Be in touch.
I did send you a message on Facebook.
I will do so.
Yeah, or maybe Jennifer, post this in the group. That might be a good thing to post all this text in the group where people can review it and go
and pick it apart.
Follow the links and yeah, this is great educational stuff. Like this is
yeah. I mean, there's some gold in there,
Yeah.
Now I'm not, but see, it's gonna, even if I post it in the group like that, it's gonna do weird things with the text. The pagination of it's all jacked up.
Oh, I got you. Like the paragraphs and all of that. Yeah. Well, if you can
take screenshots.
Yeah, you could screenshot it and definitely, and then include
Okay.
copy the links and only post the links in your comments, or what I'm saying, put a screenshot and then post the link so the link can be followed.
Okay. I'll have to work because like I said, it's a lot. It's 7 pages. So
Yeah, I'm scrolling through it. It is quite a bit.
Yeah.
But most of this is, and this is another reason why sharpening the ability to concentrate the focus is important, so that we can get through stuff like this and have some sort of understanding. And because I've said this before, like we're in a flood right now, but this time the deluge is information, and the legal codes are written in a way that it obfuscates and hides the gold, the nuggets, and a lot of the other stuff is just superfluous language to confuse you.
Have any of you read the book Word Magic?
I haven't, but I have given. I used to give workshops called Word Sound Power. But yeah, what is word magic? Is it in context with legality or
Oh,
talking about the
not
language?
really the legal stuff, but more just like the words that we use and how they use them against us. Like when you guys were talking earlier about like, the week and then the weekend, you end your week because it's making you weak. Stuff like that. That's what the Word Magic book is about.
Right.
Do you know the author?
I can
That's
look
all
it
right.
up real quick.
Or holidays, holiday. Every day is a holy day. But the calendar, they trick us to think that there's holidays. It's certain days are special, so you got to work to get to the next one. It's
Yeah, like Lupercalia that we just had, Valentine's Day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Word Magic, the power. It's called, the full is Word Magic, the powers and occult definitions of words.
That sounds fun.
Very Steiner. I've got to go back and read some Rudolph. Oh, so much magic. I mean, just the basics that everyone says, I can't, I'm not good at it, I'm bad, start with those. I mean, the magic is like in the everyday sayings, like for me, like Jiggy was saying, it's like I don't say I'm sorry anymore. When I do, I catch myself, I correct it. It's all about reprogramming. So
yeah, I've caught myself listening to songs, and it's like some of those songs that like I used to just be like so into.
I
can't
can't
because
anymore.
I listen to the lyrics and I'm like, my God, who wants to be like that?
I
Like,
can't anymore. It's just all this. Yeah.
It blows me away how much is hidden in those songs. And when you gain perspective, you're like, wait, are they talking about legality? Are they talking about citizenship? Like, what? This is all in maybe it's subconscious, but it's right there.
I have not heard. I can't say any songs have ever made me question that.
Okay.
Jiggy's
Yeah.
listening to listen.
What are
close.
you listening
I'd
to?
have to.
I mean, even classic songs, songs you've sung along with. I can't think of a specific experience, one right now, but and then you've got artists like B.O.B. that are rapping about it, and he's laying it out there for you. But
I don't know that either.
No, like the songs I'm talking about, there's one specifically, like when I quit drinking and I went back and I listened to the song, and it's something about like, aren't you going to stay with me while I drown myself or some stupid shit like that, like
Wow.
I'm always going to be like, it basically gave the whole I'm going to be a hopeless alcoholic my entire life kind of vibe, and I was just like, people are singing this to themselves, like, and it's in the song like 10 million times, so you're repeating it to yourself, and like I said earlier, where the mind goes, the body follows, and it's it's just really interesting what they're programming into people's brains, and my kids and the music that they listen to. Like, I swear to God, when I moved to Michigan from California, the first song that my son played in my car said, "I can't keep my dick in my pants."
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so some of the stuff that I would think about like is telling truth, like Tool. Tool is one of those that's just dropping crazy knowledge.
Have you heard of Gojira?
Yep. Yeah, I've seen Gojira. Yeah, but the Bruce Springsteen song, On Fire, like that one's a creepy one, right? Hey, little girl, is your daddy home?
It's so
like,
creepy.
What are you
and
talking
I
about?
posted it, and I love the remake of like that song. But then I was like, yeah, it's really like that hits like the lower chakra right there. And that's, and that's very attractive to me, or seductive, or, to most of us, until you really, like, I like the song, but like, again, you learn to decipher. Now I'm deciphering, right, more and more. What are we listening to for pleasure versus,
Well, it's a
other
common practice.
cerebral versus other kinds of pleasure.
Right. Well, if you get into the religious documents, like religious scripts and all of that, like it talks about music and sound, and in the Christian faith, Lucifer, it was musical, and so music is used, and music has been used, and it's been perverted by the Vatican. The tuning has been changed by the Rothschilds in the 50s from 432 to 440. Which changes the way that the overall sound resonates. So 440 hits you in the head, in your brain, so it makes you more susceptible to programming. E2 resonates in the heart, The solfeggio scale is a scale that was hidden in the catacombs of the Vatican for a long time. And these are, the bells. The bells were removed. All the bells got taken out. Why did all the bells get gone? Because they were using sound to keep us attuned. And so even the sound has been hijacked. And I've spent a lot of time in and around the music industry. And these are ritualistic experiences, and they're using sound to hypnotize people and to program these things into us. And, the body follows the beat more than it listens to the lyrics typically.
So true.
And, they even have it's common practice for the labels, the big labels, they have seances over the masters. They bring energy into the masters before they even release the music to the public. And so these are satanic energies or evil, whatever you want to call it, but it's an energy harvesting tool. And if you can't destroy something, you can't destroy another living thing, but if you can condition it to destroy itself, now you're sidestepping universal karmic law.
Well, they'd like to weaken, again, coming back to energies and building energy. It's like all of this stuff is all around us at all times. So the most you can do, or the more that we can do to build our energy and build our kind of force field and not allow those types of lower vibration. I was just listening to, I guess it was on Aubrey Marcus, but it was a podcast with the woman that I quoted in the beginning, Laurel Araya. I don't know how to say her name, but I can post it. Anyway, she was fabulous. And she said, a lot of, in the beginning, there was the word, and the word is sound, right? The word is vibration, solfeggio, and words themselves, just the language is the sound, right? The sound of the words, forget the music, the words we use on a daily basis to each other, is the same, right? They can be cursed, they are spells, they're magic. So music, words, language, speaking several languages. If you do, it's funny, she was mentioning eyes and how, in other languages, the eyes is see, yes, and how the eyes is a derivative of yes, and how in Spanish it's sí. And so for people who speak more than one language, it's the more languages you speak, the more souls you have, essentially, the more you can see beyond the veil of, the illusion that the English language is. So music and language.
Well, that's what etymology helps with. You don't necessarily have to speak the language, but if you can, the etymology will expose you to different languages, and then you can associate those words.
It is kind of its own language, right? Etymology is other languages, because the root word is always another language.
History of the word, isn't it?
Etymology is the study of the root of language, or the study of the origin of language. And so
Sanskrit,
you're realizing
Arabic, all the root words, could be Sanskrit, it could be Latin, it could be.
It's beyond words. It's the symbols and the sigils. Each sigil
Glyphs.
Each sigil carries its own meaning, and language carries meaning no matter orientation or relation. And this is why we can read jumbled words. This is why, for instance, you have to be silent to listen. Those are the same 6 letters. Those words are interrelated. They're tied to each other. If you're not silent, you can't listen. And so, and then, you get into government. Governo is, Governo means to control. That's Latin. And then ment is mentis or mente. That's Greek and Latin for the mind. Entertainment, enter, to penetrate, tain, to capture and hold, ment, the mind. So entertainment is to penetrate, capture, and hold the mind. Religion, to once again do. Legion is a form of legion, which is also a form of ligere. It comes from the word ligere, which means to bind oneself to another. A legion is an army force where many men bind themselves together to create war and division. So religion is to once again bind yourself to another for the purpose of war and division. It's just once you start digging through and you see, like you said, the more languages, etymology is one of the, it's a code cracker. It changes everything. Even if a word sounds the same, it can mean the same, right? So
I think I broke down COVID when COVID was going on, and I think it meant to destroy the sheep, like to destroy a group of people following. When I broke it down, the co and the vid.
COVID is the coronavirus identity. It's the apparatus that they're going to force the next form of identification through. Corona also means the aura of the sun or the crown, right? And so, yeah, I broke that down too. It's you're looking at, like, I happen to think that, if we're transmuting, then Corona is actually, the coronavirus could be something that is actually preparing and elevating or purifying the aura of sun, which is the life, the reflection of life. And so, I had this vision one time right before COVID hit. I was in a Walmart and I saw this obese lady, and she was a grandma, and she was in her Walmart. She was a manager or something. She seemed, I could see the loving grandma, and I could see this kind woman, but I could also see this like Karen and not such a nice boss to work for. And in that moment, I had I saw she was surrounded by workers, by her employees, and I had this inner dialogue and like a vision. I saw her as like this unhealthy, this unhealthy thing, and it was like, well, you didn't get the memo. We're being healthy now. And like the people that were surrounded her were all, they were all healthy looking people. And I had this idea, this vision of her being surrounded by white blood cells and being like, you didn't get the memo, you didn't apply it, you're not healthy, we're going to have to shift you, and we're going to have to transmute this, and you're going to have to die because you are not healthy and you're bringing down the whole organism. And then COVID hit like 3 months later. So, if we see things as a bigger body, we can transmute the fear. And while it's tragic, and we all, I think everyone's connected to someone that we lost someone or through this experience. But, death is that's the price of admission here, is death. And so the price of admission to life is death. And so it's just part of it. And if we're seeing ourselves as a bigger organism, while this may be intended as a weapon to hurt us and to put us more under control, it can also be a tool that's strengthening us and removing the unhealthy cells so that we can be more healthy as a complete organism, even as humanity.
Yeah, there's no creation without destruction, right? So again.
Right. And even that's, energy cannot be created nor destroyed. So really we're just changing the form of the clay. The clay is not being destroyed. We're just molding it differently.
Yeah, transmute. Well,
yeah, so the language coding is very powerful. I encourage, all etymology is like, it's just so, it's been a catalyst for me. It's a warp gate for your ability to code, for your ability to decipher the code.
thank you very much. Well, thanks everyone. I have to work tomorrow. It's getting pretty late. I wanted to open up the floor and see if anyone else had any questions or any comments or any clarification.
It's been a great call, you guys. Thanks.
Yeah, really amazing. Thanks, guys.
All right. I'm gonna hop off. Good night.
Good night, Jen.
Good night, Jen.
So,
I'm going to
Robin,
turn into, it's been
you okay?
awesome.
Is that a cricket?
I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. I was hearing some background noise. Before I could hear you, I just heard like a loud cricket. Cricket has something.
I don't know. Maybe it's because Yossi's in the same room. So now there's all this. I'm going to jump off and say goodnight, but thank you so much.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Okie dokie, guys. Well, if nobody else has any questions or thoughts or anything they'd like to add, it is 22:51 Central Standard Time, Tuesday night meeting of the minds. Thank you guys so much for joining.
Yossi, I was curious what you thought of I sent you some of the screenshots that we talked about last call. Did you have a chance?
Yeah,
to
just got them right before the call, brother. So I'm gonna take a look at some of that stuff. I'll get back to you.
Sounds good.
Yes, sir. All right, guys. Thank you. Until next time. We'll see you Saturday.